Welcome, everyone, to our beautiful Bernalillo County Chambers. I call this April 14th, 2026 hybrid administrative meeting of the Bernalillo County Commission to order. Commissioner Benson is joining remotely. We will have a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by, would you mind doing that, Commissioner Barbara Baca? Sure. Thank you. Led by Commissioner Barbara Baca. Thank you.
Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have item number 3, announcement or addition of changes to the agenda. Madam County Manager, are there any changes or additions to the agenda this evening?
Yes, thank you. 9C, Economic Development, South Valley Tax Increment Finance District. Staff is requesting a suspension of the rules to adopt the item at introduction to budget, the funding so that pros can take advantage of current pricing for improvements at Dolores Huerta Park. And I think that's the only change, Julie.
Okay. Okay, a vote is required for the above action to the agenda. I so move. Can I have a second? Second. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All of those in favor, please. Oh, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have a due pass. Okay, we will move on to public comment. We do have quite a few folks signed up for public comment tonight. Thank you for coming and joining us. Each person has 2 minutes and will be alerted about your remaining time. When your name is called, please make your way to the podium up here if you're speaking in person. Before making your statements, please remember to state your name for the record and to maintain order and decorum in the spirit of professionalism and respect for everyone present. Speakers must adhere to the 2-minute time limit rule, and if the conduct of the presenter violates the rules, this may be subject to removal. Javier, please call the names of our speakers this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tonight we have a total of 18 speakers in person and 1 speaker appearing remotely. Please line up when your name is called and state your name for the record. The first speaker we will have is Jane Beetle, followed by Iran Torres, followed by Elizabeth Waltrip.
Was it Gene or you're on first? Gene.
Interesting.
My name is Jane Beckley. Madam Chair and Commissioners, on behalf of the Wascona Executive Committee, whose vote was unanimous, I am here to affirm our wholehearted endorsement of the Economic Development Strategy Deliverables Resolution. We submitted written comments, which I won't repeat. There are several narratives repeated when discussing economic development and the future of Albuquerque and Bernalillo County. They hold a kernel of truth, but are rarely considered or examined beyond a tacit acceptance. Some of these are, we have to grow or we'll die. We need jobs. We create too many obstacles for developers and businesses. They'll go where it's easier. Neighborhood associations oppose everything. I would like to reframe these. We need growth that is strategic, equitable, sustainable, and environmentally sound. We need jobs that look like a potential career, that offer opportunity for advancement and skill development. We need businesses and developers willing to partner with the community, who see contributing to the welfare and economic viability of the community good business practice. Neighborhood associations object and support development. We need development that regards divergent viewpoints as desirable, and the process of confronting those critical to positive change and protecting our uniqueness. The economic development strategy deliverables support these narratives and establish the standards that would make them reality. We urge your support of the proposed resolution. Thank you for your consideration.
Iran Torres, followed by Elizabeth Waldrop, followed by Rhiannon Samuel.
Hi, my name is Iran Torres, and I am an alum of the first Next Gen cohort. Before I found the Next Gen program, I had no existing professional network in Albuquerque, nor did I feel as connected to the communities here. Beyond that, I wanted to transition into an environmental justice career, but this was difficult given my limited experience with environmental and conservation jobs. Fortunately for me, this was short-lived once I joined the Next Gen program. By the end of the 16-week program, I completed 500+ hours of direct exposure to working in urban forestry, urban agriculture, outdoor education, and natural resource management. One of the most valuable takeaways from the program was my enhanced connection to the land, the community here, and the mentorship and employment opportunities I've gained. Through the SEMIA Projects partnership with Bernalillo County, I began a 9-month full-time position with Natural Resource Services. This experience has profoundly impacted my career by exposing me to job shadowing, growing my professional network, and acquiring tangible skills that will inform my future as a natural resource services professional. Currently, I am preparing to transition into a farm apprentice position at the Indigenous Farm Hub and will continue to search for long-term positions in water resources. My ultimate goal is to combine my passions for strengthening local food systems and supporting watershed health, healthy soils, and overall water conservation of our precious waterways. I support allocating more funding to continue these cohorts. I think they're very important for youth here in Albuquerque. Thank you.
Elizabeth Waldrop, followed by Rhiannon Samuel, followed by Dr. Geraldo Cianello.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Waldrop. I represent Bernalillo County for the State of New Mexico Economic Development Department. I'm here this evening to speak against the proposed Bernalillo County Economic Development Strategy and its public benefits rubric. This proposal is a duplication of efforts that the state is already practicing. The very things you are trying to accomplish with this are already being practiced at the state level. We evaluate not only capital investment and number of jobs for each project, we also consider the quality of those jobs, their wages, employee benefits packages, and the company's use of local suppliers, contractors. We do this for every single project. All of these determine economic impact and the return on investment to the state, city, and county. As for workforce development, the state already pays for it. We have free 2-year and 4-year college education. The state provides free certificate programs to the trades. Our state funds the Job Training Incentive Program, which has been around since the 1970s and is one of the most robust programs in the nation. Speed to market keeps New Mexico competitive for economic development projects. Our latest wins are from our ability to act quickly and nimbly as a department. This proposed approach to economic development creates additional layer upon layer of bureaucracy that adds time and added costs to doing business. Thank you.
Rhiannon Samuel, followed by Dr. Geraldo Cianello, followed by Ms. Ward.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Rhiannon Samuel, and I'm the Executive Director of NAOP New Mexico. NAOP members create the spaces that we all love to live, work, and play in. I'm really moved by Beth's comments coming from the State Economic Development Department, and I hope you'll pay heed to everything that she had to say. From where we stand with NAOP, we support the intent behind the economic development rubric, the accountability, the local hiring, the environmental responsibility, These are goals that we all share. But this rubric that will govern millions of dollars in public investments needs to be precise, and it isn't there yet. When you combine the payment in lieu of taxes, the additional community benefits fund contribution, and the small business obligation, an applicant at the exemplary scoring band is already returning 13 to 17% of their abatement before operations begin. On a $20 million project, which is relatively small, the total compliance costs, including the project labor agreement requirement, can approach or exceed the value of the incentive itself. At that point, you haven't created an incentive program. I'll remind you that an IRB is industrial revenue abatement, and what you're trying to do is encourage activity. But what you've created is a reason to locate elsewhere. We're asking the board to pause adoption, direct staff to develop published definitions and guidance in collaboration with those who will actually be applying for this abatement and using this tool, and conduct a financial impact evaluation to bring a revised rubric back for another round of public comment. Get the definitions right first, and the program will be stronger for it. Thank you.
Dr. Geraldo Cianello, followed by Ms. Ward, followed by Jessica Haley Walker.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the County Commission. Dr. Geraldo Cianello. I'm an alternative health doctor and minister. You should have already received the email from me by now regarding the abortion in our water in details. New Mexico is the abortion capital of the nation, and Albuquerque is the second most violent crime in the nation per capita. Did you know there's a comprehensive analysis titled Abortion in Our Water, Chemical Home Abortions, and Disposition of Aborted Fetal Remains, detailing how the same water that we families and taxpayers used to drink, cook, and bathe in may contain residuals from abortion drugs. It showed that 30 to 40 tons of hazardous medical waste, including human fetal remains and chemical byproducts of the abortion pill, mifepristone, are being flushed into U.S. water system annually. Estimation around 700,000 chemical abortions annually, with the waste entering public water supplies due to at-home use and disposal via toilets. The wastewater treatment plants are not designed to filter out these metabolites or fetal tissues, which is a national public health and environmental crisis. The FDA and EPA failed to conduct environmental impact studies before approving it and are now violating federal laws like the Clean Water Act and National Environmental Policy Act. These harmful drugs are endocrine disruptors, potentially contribute to rising infertility rates, liver injury, heavy vaginal bleeding, uterine cramping, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, headache, and dizziness, and a call for public hearing, strict regulation, and a ban on flushing fetal remains. That said, you, county commissioners, all have a plan of action for the sake of our county, citizens, and health well-being. Thank you. May God have mercy on our county.
Ms. Ward, followed by Jessica Haley Walker, followed by Elizabeth Haley.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Ms. Ward, or M. Ward. So I kind of actually have questions about the rubric. And does the rubric apply to all tax abatement mechanisms like the pilot, TIDs, MRAs across the board? And point out that historically TIDs have overpromised and underperformed. I can think of an example in the last, I don't know how many years, fairly recent here in Bernalillo County, where a multi-billion-dollar company wanted tax abatement and was claiming creating X number of jobs. However, 85% of those jobs were below the living wage for Bernalillo County. And that corporation did get some money, but I think was rejected on a second request to increase the money or the allowances. And is there a time limit for the duration of a pilot? Like at some point, presumably if things are successful, the tax revenue generated would be greater than the payment made earlier. And you wouldn't want to lose out the generated income if you've not limited how long that payment lasts. So I just wanted clarification on that. And I think it'd be important to try to avoid creating the notion that if any company applies or uses the rubric, if they fill in the points, they would actually get some sort of tax abatement, because I think the commission should still be able to exercise discretion to say, no, we don't want this at all. And don't forget to write in clawbacks for underperformance. My time is up. Thank you very much.
Jessica Haley Walker, followed by Elizabeth Haley, followed by Julie Radoslavich.
Hello, my name is Jessica Haley Walker. I'm here to speak on the Bernalillo County Community Benefits Rubric, specifically the section on workers and their training, education, and professional development. I'm an educator of 22 years. I worked in APS for 12 of those years, but I'd like to speak to you about the time I spent working in the Austin Independent School District as a career and technical education teacher. Part of my job was to create internships for students with local companies. And to help the students train to be ready for those internships. The school created the curriculum, did the training, and organized the transportation, and all we ask from companies is that they provide mentors, interview the students, and reimburse them with a basic minimum wage for the time that they spent. We contacted over 60 tech companies in Austin, most of which had received incentives from the state and local government to come to our town. Of those 60 companies, 5 said yes. When we asked those companies, did you have programs in place for students or early entry, previous to the time that we contacted them, many of those companies said that yes, they did have those programs, but that over time, due to mergers, acquisitions from other companies, and changes in leadership, those various programs had been discontinued. I'd like to ask you to please consider some of the experiences that we had in trying to set up these programs in Austin and learn the lesson that we learned there, that if you do not get guaranteed investments from companies in our children's education and training until after those companies have received those subsidies and tax abatements, the answer from those companies when you reach out to them will most often be no.
Elizabeth Haley, followed by Julie Radoslavich, followed by Chad Matheson.
Madam Chair, members of the Commission, my name is Elizabeth Haley. I'm speaking tonight absolutely in support of the rubric. I spent most of my professional career working as a consultant for tribal governments on new housing and for the federal government, especially the Department of Interior, for their housing across the nation. And so I've looked at a lot of economic development studies. I've looked at probably 5,000 different housing units and about 80 different locations in total. What I have to say is that many people will tell you here tonight that if you just put business first, that should be your first determining factor. But we actually have a template from when that happened in New Mexico, and that was during the Susana Martinez administration, where they did 37 specific tax cuts for companies coming into New Mexico, and it was a loss of $500 million in deferred revenue to taxpayers. What you'll also find, and what I found from looking at the data from the Federal Reserve, the Fed reports from the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, is that they had 2 kinds of economic outcomes from that. One of them was a V-shaped graph showing the rise in people below the poverty level, a V-shaped graph showing a loss of income and value and home ownership. The problem is that you can't depend on state government, you can't depend on federal programs, and when there is a convergence that already causes a loss, then it is only the county that can depend on the county. I if you have those other programs, great. They can help augment your efforts. Thank you.
Julie Radoslavich, followed by Chad Matheson, followed by Haley Williams, followed by Tiffany Cunningham.
Chair Barboa and Commissioners, my name is Julie Radoslavich. This month, my husband and I paid our property and state income taxes willingly because we believe in the common good. These taxes fund essential services, schools, infrastructure, public safety, public health, parks, libraries, and more. They also support economic development. When businesses request tax abatements, they are asking to benefit from these same public resources. Those abatements are taxpayer investments, and they should come with clear, measurable community returns. I'm speaking today as chair of the West Central Alliance of Neighbors, or We Can, representing 4 neighborhood associations just west of the Rio Grande. We Can unequivocally supports the Economic Development Strategy Deliverables resolution before you today. In particular, we support the Community Benefit Rubric, which prioritizes local hiring, livable wages, workforce training, responsible procurement, environmental stewardship, and a community benefit fund. These are practical, transparent standards that ensure public dollars are used responsibly. These deliverables set clear expectations. If a business seeks public support, it must also demonstrate real commitment to our community. This proposal reflects extensive community input, which I appreciate. Residents, small businesses, and industry all had a seat at the table. It is thoughtful, balanced, and ready. We Can urges your support. Mil gracias.
Chad Matheson, followed by Haley Williams, followed by Tiffany Cunningham, followed by Jules Salinas.
Good evening. My name is Haley Williams, and I was one of the first Next Gen cohort interns. Before Next Gen, I had graduated high school not knowing what to do with my life, what job to apply for, until I heard about the Next Gen internship. I've never really experienced being outdoors the way Next Gen took us outdoors. I was a landscaper with my dad, but nothing like the way Next Gen. When I went through the program, it was lots of nice hikes, not lots of nice views. I learned how to connect with my roots, how to connect with myself, and mostly the earth and land. They taught us how to use medicinal plants to heal ourselves, taught us how to guide through the mountains, use first aid wilderness exploration. We learned about community empowerment was a big thing. They taught us how and when we connect to our community. We learned ways to garden and take care of the soil, and when those gardening days were over, we harvest what we planted. They focused on introducing the BIPOC community to outdoors. Working with BurnCo has taught me about conservation science, resource management. I've learned how to birdwatch, and I've learned and explored wildlife, surveying and tracking, and the importance of wildlife. I've learned trail mapping, and I've done trail work. I've learned how to use different wildlife tracking apps. Right now, I have a job opportunity with wildlife rescue as an opportunity with Hoxaloft due to one opportunity that Next Gen and BurnCo have gave me. Everyone at BurnCo who taught me and helped me are really smart and passionate about what they do. I hope to find a job that I'm passionate like that about one day.
Tiffany Cunningham, followed by Jules Salinas, followed by Bianca Encinas.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, commissioners and everybody here. First, I just want to say thank you to you all. I've been really impressed with this process, hearing your dialogue, your thoughtfulness, your stamina in these very long nights and evenings. And I'm really thankful to be part of this process, and I'm very impressed in lieu of the world. So I'm thankful to be in a community that has a listening ear and that I really do believe wants to do what's best for the people. So I'm obviously in support of this rubric. It's a great step. We want to build from the inside out. We want to grow what we have here. We have talent, we have resources, We have all the things that we need, and we have incredible businesses that want to expand and grow, and I want to see that happen. If we are going to bring anybody from the outside in, they need to recognize that we are a jewel and that we will not be exploited and we will not be extracted from, period. Thank you for putting the people first. I know that this is going to go through because we put a lot of time, effort, thought into this, and I know that that's not going to be in vain. So thank you for your hard work, and thank you for moving this forward for us.
Jules Salinas, followed by Bianca Encinas, followed by Emmett Yepa.
Well, I don't know that I can follow up that, but I will try. Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Jules Salinas, or Julianne Salinas. Tonight, I'm commenting on the proposed community benefits rubric, both as a county constituent and as somebody who works in the county, indeed often in partnership with the county by position at the Agricultura Cooperative Network in La Cosecha. I'm thrilled to see the development of this rubric and strongly support its adoption. It represents great strides in values-based vetting that puts people and planet before proposed profits and codifies these values in practice. Tonight, I want to focus on the adoption of the proposed small business goals and standards. Working with an organization that is rooted in local procurement and in the agricultural sector, and the criticality of these considerations cannot be overstated. We know that local, diverse, small business sourcing and development is essential to building wealth and health in our community. Thank you for your consideration and adoption of this rubric with long-term accountability and adherence to the vetted companies. Appreciate you.
Bianca Encinas, followed by Emmett Yepa, followed by Renee Horvath.
Good evening. Thank you, County Commissioners, for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bianca Encinas, and I'm the Executive Director of the South Valley Main Street. We were here in February doing our presentation. I'm here again. As you're all aware, the South Valley Main Street is a nonprofit that was created by Bernalillo County in the Bridge Boulevard Redevelopment Plan in 2013, and then we were created into a nonprofit in 2014. And I was the first executive director hired in 2016. And I was excited because as a Chicana who grew up in the Mountain View community and has been doing environmental justice work, economic and community development work for over 25 years, it provided me an opportunity to do economic development and use some of the financial tools that some of the public commenters are speaking on tonight. So what I wanted to highlight tonight was our return on investment and our metrics. For the $1.5 million that the county has allocated to us over the past 9 years, we have brought in from the county over $3 million in public infrastructure funding and other investments. We've secured $850,000 for the Papel Picado bus shelters that you see on Bridge Boulevard that Senator Linda Lopez allocated. We've secured $400,000 in GROW funding to help senior citizens rehabilitate their homes, senior citizens who are low income. We have also secured $1.1 million from the New Mexico Main Street capital outlay, which only Main Streets can apply for the Dolores Huerta Gateway Park. And then in addition to that, we've secured close to $600,000 from the New Mexico legislature for the redesign of the Dolores Huerta Gateway Park. So as you can see, our return on investment, the funding that we've brought in for the county has been above and beyond what was set when we were first created. In the past 10 years, we've received $65,000 a year for all of the work that we do and general support for the county. This year, the state mandated that the county allocate $79,000, and we're coming in and requesting an additional $150,000 as our work has grown. Thank you so much. We appreciate all your support.
Emmett Yepa, followed by Renee Horvath, followed by Marlene Salas, followed by Adi Herrick.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. My name is Emmett Yepa. I'm here representing the Semir Project. We work with youth, workers, and families across Bernalillo County to build paths to good jobs and healthy futures. I'm here in strong support of the Community Benefits Rubric. Investing in environmental justice matters. It protects our communities and our people. When public money goes to companies, it should also protect our water, support climate solutions, and create real jobs to local people. Growth that builds community, wealth, and takes care of our environment. Public money should come with accountability. These investments should protect our natural resources, create local jobs, and support small businesses. That's why we also support the establishment of a community benefits fund to ensure long-term direct investment back into our communities, and the creation of an economic advisory board to provide transparency, community voice, and ongoing oversight. This resolution and rubric gives the county the tools to do that. It helps ensure economic development is fair, responsible, and truly benefits our community. I respectfully urge you to vote yes. Thank you for your time and your consideration.
Renee Horvath, followed by Marlene Salas, followed by Adie Herrick.
Good evening. My name is Renee Horvath, and I live on the west side. And I did attend those meetings. I thought they were very good, and we had a lot of good dialogue as a result. And so my focus at the meetings was economic development. How do you define it? I think of being sustainable and maintaining quality of life. And to complement the things that make Albuquerque special. You know, we got a lot of cool stuff around here with history, with cultural, architecture, Southwest character, and this beautiful landscape with these view sheds that are spectacular. So I always try to promote development to complement those things. So as we try to attract people to Albuquerque, we should also think, the other thing that I think about is water resource, because I know we rely on the Rio Grande, and right now the Rio Grande is very low. And so and it's the lowest it's been in 50 years, since 1975. So I know, and we owe water downstream. And I'm really worried we're not going to meet those needs. And if we don't meet their water needs, we get penalized. And so as I think about, you know, these incentives to trying to bring a lot of people here, and I don't mind bringing people here, but I think about this water resource not being able to support them. And so we need to think about our water resources as we do it. And I know the rubrics has that listed, and water conservation. And so, but as we look at these things, I think we really need to focus on the water resources, because the Colorado River supplies 7 states, including New Mexico, and Arizona is asking for us to help them with their water issues because they brought too many people in. So I think we need to pay attention to that. So thank you.
Marlene Salas, followed by Adie Herrick.
Good evening, Commissioners, Chair Barbeau, and fellow Commissioners. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Marlene Salas. I do community engagement for South Valley Main Street. First of all, I want to start tonight by thanking you for all supporting the sliding scale for the summer youth program. And I'm going to tell you a short little story about your vote. 2 little boys, 8 years old, both go to Adobe Acres Elementary. Last summer, one of them got to attend the summer program because his family could afford it. The other child, unfortunately, wasn't able to go. But let me report back to you that this past Tuesday, best friends, both little boys, registered at Westside Community Center for this summer. So thank you. I just wanted to report back to you how important that vote is, and how, I mean, that's only one of many stories. One of many stories I'm going to hear about. Okay, so thank you. The next thing is I am here again tonight to make another request for your support for the South Valley Main Street. We do senior rehabilitation, senior housing rehabilitation. God, I'm sorry, I can't talk tonight. And also the La Familia Farmers Market, which is a very popular event. I don't know if you remember, but we had quite a crowd that actually cheered. 99% of those people had never been to a meeting before, so or they weren't sure of the decorum, but their heart was in the right place. County Manager Chavez has even attended the farmers market, so she can attest to how popular it is and how much it means to our community. So again, I appreciate your support once again for the South Valley, and thank you for your time.
Adie Herrick.
Good evening, y'all. I keep on being Adeo Herrick, and I'm coming to you tonight
to talk about community benefits, because nothing about us without us is for us. And there's a lot of folks out there who are, maybe stuck in rush hour while we're sitting here in this very fine chamber. And they deserve jobs that pay not just surviving wage, not just a scraping by wage, but a real living wage. There's so many reasons that the community benefits are important, including all the frankly frightening water issues that we are seeing. Seeing the Rio Grande run dry is a dark sign, and I urge you all to act with urgency to hold polluters accountable, hold extractors accountable, and make sure that when it comes to the land, the air, and the water, you are listening to the indigenous voices who have been stewarding this place for generations, since time immemorial, and I have a feeling that they would really enjoy that. Because we're all a community here, and we take care of each other. Have a good night.
This concludes our in-person speakers. We will now move on to our remote speaker, Camilla Fiebelman.
Welcome, Camilla.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm Camila Feibelman. I'm the director of the Sierra Club's Rio Grande chapter, and I'm here to speak in support to this additional layer of detail coming to the community benefits program via the Rubric and the permanent committee. And I want to maybe think about my organization's support from an environmental standpoint, from how it might play out for a business that we'd just love to have here in Bernalillo County. And I think that comes to me for me into focus when I think about what the environmental impacts and opportunities of a business might be. I might first think, are they going to build or refurbish a building? And what kind of above building codes type activities might they be willing to carry out to reduce their energy demand? With a highly efficient building, they might be willing, like Facebook did, to ask PNM or provide their own renewable energy to energize the building. When it comes to water, they might build in some highly efficient, let's say, toilets and hand washing stations and make sure that there's water bottle filling opportunities. And if there were some sort of water effluent, they would take great care and go beyond just what the water authority requires. And so in some ways, this is like an interview for a business that wants to come to town. They're committing to us about what they're bringing to the table in return to these deferred tax payments that they might otherwise make. And I think I said this in public comment last time, but when I get a tax break from the state, it's usually because I'm bringing something to the table. I've installed maybe a solar panel, and so I'm helping keep the community's air cleaner. And so I think the same thing can be said when it comes to employment, to job training. This is us taking a look at what kind of business we'd like to do. Thank you so much, and hope for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This concludes our public comment.
Thank you, Javier. We will move on to item 4A, University of New Mexico Hospital Report, third quarter. UNMH CEO Kate Becker to present this evening. Welcome back, Ms. Becker.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you for having me this evening. So as usual, your packet has our report in it, and I'm going to just give you a couple of highlights, and then happy to answer any questions. So the first two highlights I want to focus on today actually are related to our children's hospital. First of all, just wanted to let you know that we have volunteer therapy dogs at the hospital for everybody. But we also actually have a facility dog at the children's hospital, Chaco, who belongs to the hospital. She lives with one of the child life specialists, and she comes to work every day. So she is always at the hospital, meeting kids, meeting staff who really appreciate it, parents and families. And so I'm happy to report we've received a donation that's going to enable us to get a second facility dog. So we're really excited to add that second dog to the hospital's staff. For that, she has a little badge and everything. It's very cute.
I want to know that she got a good benefit packet.
It's all the kibble she can eat. And then the second thing, also related to the Children's Hospital. So the foundation has a fund called Keeping Kids Safe that we use to support our child abuse response team and other services that are related to child abuse prevention and services. And really happy that that fund was able to sponsor on April 2nd a conference called Prevent, Protect, and Partner. And that included folks from the Bernalillo County Sheriff's Office, APD, APS, CYFD, the Children's Hospital. And it was a really great day. It was a full day from 8 to 3 for folks to get together out at the Bonifacio Center and really learn more about how they can work together to intervene sooner and to help protect children before they get to the point of where we are seeing them in the hospital. So just really proud of that work that the Children's Hospital has been doing and wanted to share that in case you hadn't heard about it. And then I have one last piece of news. This one is specifically for Commissioner Olivas. We did sign a collective bargaining agreement with the residents union last month. So we are successful there. And with that, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone? I think when you said highlights, I thought you were going to highlight the report. I mean, I guess I have questions from the things you've raised before. I didn't go into too much, so I don't know what pages. I usually try to be more prepared. But to the pieces before that you've talked about around like nursing, and I know you talked about you had a goal of getting to less traveling nurses or others, some of those big items that had been impacting that you had talked about before. Could you just share a quick update on?
Sure, happy to. So there's 3 initiatives we're focusing on for financial improvement. The first one is reducing our length of stay, which is making sure patients are in the hospital for the right amount of time when they are there, because that helps us provide more access for folks who need to get in. The second one is managing our cost of supplies, which is really negotiating with our vendors on our supply costs. And the third one, which is the one you're referencing, is the cost of contract labor or travelers. So really working hard to hire core staff so that we can replace those travelers. So we have a goal of replacing 200 of our contract nurses. We have about 400 in the hospital, 200 of them over the next 90 days. And so the teams have been working really hard on figuring out how we can recruit and retain people. I will say that the biggest challenge, honestly, is there's a lot of people, and I can say this, I'm a baby boomer, there's a lot of people in my age demographic who need care, and there's not as many people in the younger age demographic of people who are doing the caretaking. So really working hard to make sure that we're raising folks into those jobs, and that's why we have the expansion for the College of Nursing and the School of Medicine and all of those other programs, because that's going to be what's going to enable us to have that steady state of workforce.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So you have a chart here showing MDC inmates receiving hospital services. Is that inmates that are transported from the facility, or is that just the same patient that was seen later on?
Thank you for that question. The report contains only services provided at the hospital. So those are folks who are transported from MDC to either hospitals or clinics for visits. The statistics on care provided at MDC are part of the MDC report to the Healthcare Authority.
Great, thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. There's no other questions. Thank you for this update and report. And I do like to get updates on the report, or we can meet separately too if needed.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay, great. Moving on to item number 5, approval of the consent agenda. Madam Clerk, please provide resolution numbers for items 5A and 5H. And the consent agenda has been published and made available to the public. Please provide those numbers.
Yes, ma'am. Commissioner Benson. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm calling roll.
Sorry.
I totally spaced out. All right. Item 5A, AR 2026-38, and 5H is AR 2026-39. And I'm glad to know that all of you guys were paying attention. I was testing you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I move to approve the consent agenda. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Olivas. And please, Madam Clerk, now please call the roll.
Okay. Commissioner Benson.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consent agenda passes. Moving on to item number 7, adoption of ordinance. Madam Clerk, please issue an ordinance number for 7A.
Yes, item 7A is ordinance 2026-6.
Thank you, Clerk Kavanaugh. And I will convene a public hearing. We have, sorry, I'm out of it too. Economic Development Oso Negro Industrial Revenue Bond. Economic Development Director Marcos Carolyn Tobias to present.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the record, we have nobody signed up for the public hearing.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Carolyn Tobias, Bernalillo County Economic Development Manager. This evening, the Economic Development staff request approval to adopt the ordinance to issue taxable industrial revenue bonds in the amount not to exceed $175 million in connection with a proposed project, the Oso Negro LLC, located within Bernalillo County for the purpose of development of a standalone battery storage project. The bonds will provide certain tax exemptions to defray part of the cost of the project. The county is not making a loan or lending its credit to the company. By way of overview, again, for an industrial revenue bond, when we list the par value, it is the amount of private investment being brought to the project by the company. The company will create 2 full-time jobs after the construction period through a third-party management. And as a standalone battery storage facility, I think just as a reminder, the project will strengthen grid reliability and also aid New Mexico's clean energy goals by maximizing the wind and solar energy production that we have in target to be carbon-free by 2050. Again, a reminder, the location of this battery storage facility as it is at the Ladera Business Park on the west side. And as a point of benefit also with that wind and solar increasing in the state, battery storage projects really elevate the need to avoid energy waste. They are storing that energy that's coming off the renewables to be utilized and put back onto the grid during peak time. This reduces the need for excess infrastructure, and it makes that energy available when consumers are needing it most. By way of review for this evening, what's being considered by the Commission is final adoption and approval of this project revenue bond. This is not on the real property or the dirt. They will continue to pay their real property tax. This is on the personal property abatement only and represented here is the annual property tax of the $56,766 they'll continue to pay. The term of the IRB is 30 years. They will be paying a 20% pilot of the $135,485 annually, which comes out to over $4 million over the life of the project, with a return of investment of 13.9%. Again, to reiterate, just for public education, that an IRB is a but-for or a gap incentive where projects that are unable to cash flow the startup or expansion of their facility without this assistance. This evening, Nate Bell, who is a senior manager and project developer with Plus Power, is here, and together we're happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Tobias. Is there any questions? Would you like to say anything about that?
Yeah, I move approval, first of all.
I'll second.
Thank you. And I have a question. So for our future conversations, how much tax abatement is this project receiving?
On personal property, Madam Chair and Commissioner Baca, on personal property, it's an 80% abatement with 20% pilot.
So what is that amount?
It is the
8% of the 100 of the
175 million?
So the 175 million, again, pardon me, Madam Chair and Commissioner Rebecca, the 175 million is the personal investment or the private investment coming to the table. It's not the amount of taxes that are on the project. Again, the this IRB is for personal property. In this instance, for a renewable project, the batteries themselves are an equipment cost, and this is an abatement on the taxes that would be for the equipment or that personal property. So it's 80% is being abated on the taxes of that equipment over the, and then that personal property then will incur the 20% pilot, whereas the real property will continue to pay property tax.
So you don't have a bottom line number then, because it's an estimated over the 30-year period?
Commissioner Barker, can you repeat the question?
So you don't have a bottom line number of the abatement, the total abatement?
In the chart that I was sharing, I can call it out for you. Annually, the personal property exemption from the county is $200,893. So it's a $6,000 abatement over the life of the project. It's on page 6 of the deck.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
On that line there, I just wanted to point out, so all jurisdictions on that chart, it shows the total personal property abatement is $803,000 per year. So that's with all the jurisdictions. And then it shows 24 million for the lifetime of the project. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you,
So
Commissioner.
for our edification, that just gives us an idea of what a project like this would, I'm in favor of the project. We were talking about renewable energy. We did do outreach to the community. They engaged in this project and were happy with some of the facility concessions that they were given, like, the fencing around it, so that the neighborhood, felt comfortable with this being located here. So just an example of what we're talking about when we're talking about community benefits as we continue this dialogue. So thank you, Ms. Tobias. I appreciate that answer.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So on the slide now, it raised more questions for me. So we're exempting personal property tax, and then we're also exempting the gross receipts tax, which is basically charged when that is installed. So we're exempting both of those items. Is that correct?
And Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, you are correct. Yes.
Okay, so it's really those last two lines added together kind of show the total exemption.
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, you are correct. Yes.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, that's over 30 years.
Yes.
total.
Correct? Yes.
Yes, Madam Chair. So the gross receipts tax is incurred on the front end, when they're actually purchasing the equipment. But what we've tried to show is annual and over the term. So the gross receipts tax number is a little bit misleading because it doesn't come in like that over 30 years. It's kind of front-loaded when the purchase is made. But for consistency, so that to help in understanding the table, that we have separated it as annual and the 30-year term. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that explanation. Any other questions? Thank you.
Just have a quick small question. Carolyn, just a question regarding the summary, just indicated two different figures in terms of the RB amount, one of 250 million in 2023 and the other figure of 175 million in 2026. Can you just explain that to me?
Madam Chair and Vice Chair Baca, so when this project first was introduced back in 2023, they had a different model and financing, and so they first introduced it at a higher par level. However, when they came back with all the contracts confirmed as far as the purchasing of the power, that amount was lessened to the 175. So yes, you're correct, those numbers are different.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion, a second. If there's not any other questions or comments, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Benson.
No, Madam Clerk, this IRB does not produce enough jobs. Thank you.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barba Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have a do pass. Moving on to the next item, I believe is also Ms. Tobias. I have that I am the sponsor, so I will start us off. Madam Clerk, please issue a resolution number for item 8A and 8B.
Yes, Madam Chair. Item 8A is AR 2026-40. Item 8B is FR 2026-41.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yes, this next one is affordable housing. Ms. Tobias, please share a presentation.
Yes, good evening again, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. The Economic Development staff request the introduction approval of a non-PRB, which is for Renova Wyoming Affordable Housing Project. And let me see why. Okay, so what is being approved here for clarity is that a non-PRB is a Bernalillo County tax abatement with an annual fee assessed by the county that offsets the cost of certain projects that bring community benefits, such as affordable housing. And it's for projects that are not applying for a traditional project revenue bond process, but utilizes the tax exemption that normally accompanies the bond process, hence the term non-PRB. But essentially, it is that tax exemption to enable this particular development to develop 102 affordable units. It will be 100% tax exemption with over the 25-year term with the assessed county fee of $17,000. Just to give an overview of the project itself, the Renova Wyoming structure will be, again, 102 units, and it will be a blend of 60 to 120% AMI, specifically designed for workforce housing. It is located at the northwest west corner of Wyoming and Montgomery and is an infill project. So has high access to a commercial corridor right there on Montgomery and Wyoming. The project brings $10 million in private investment, and the project developers, Titan Development, have conducted community outreach to the adjacent landowners at Legacy Church and also the businesses surrounding that particular lot, as you can see highlighted in the blue. They anticipate with this support being able to start construction in the second quarter of 2027 with construction completion in the fourth quarter of 28. The final slide for this project is just showing the MFA's AMI, or area median income chart, and their associated rent matrix for this project. So you can see these AMI charts are normally released by HUD and Housing New Mexico around May. So this is 2025 numbers, but we anticipate this will be updated next month. But you can see it is the 60% to 120% that this particular project is catering towards. And I'll stand for any questions.
Can you leave that last slide up? I just wanted to, this is in my district, and I just really appreciate and want to make sure folks see that, like, the 60 to, you said 60 to 80%?
To 120%, Madam Chair.
120%. So it's on the right. And just what I appreciate, I am a proud beneficiary of public housing when I was a single mom of 2 children. But I also know that there's this middle income folks, our families who need that aren't in the single mom with 2 kids, but can still need, and my own children, my own son and his wife pay over $1,000 for a studio apartment right now. And they're struggling, right? So I think, I just appreciate that this is in that middle income and that we're doing a range of housing, and I just wanted that to be part of the conversation or awareness around this. So I move approval for this. Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any other further discussion, comments? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say this project is right across, well, it's right across the street from my district. It's hard to remember that your district goes so far up into the heights too. But this is a site, this lot, you mentioned it's infill development, and this lot has been vacant since I was in elementary school. I went to Osuna Elementary where my mom taught right down the street. And so slowly but surely that's filling in. And so, you know, it's great to see us not encouraging sprawl, but doing this kind of infill development where there's already roads and sidewalks and bus lines, water lines, everything that you need. So appreciate this project and excited to see it happen.
Thank you. Commissioner Frank Buck, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kind of my question is simply in regard to the rent and the current market rate. And I see the chart that you provide in regards to the studio, the unit, well, the number of units, I guess that is, and the AMI, and then the difference, obviously, in the rate. But do you have in your possession, or just, I mean, I'm sure there's out there what is the current market rate for these different size units in that area?
Madam Chair and Vice Chair Baca, I can research that for you and provide current market rate for this area.
Yeah, I'm just curious about that, if that was available. They seemed about market rate, to me, but just looking at it from that and going up to, obviously depending to income. But anyway, I'm just wondering if you have that information. No, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. If there's not any other discussion.
Yes, Madam Chair. Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to item 8B, Economic, the South Valley Tax Increment Financing District. Again, I think. I'm gonna move to 9C, sorry.
Not yet.
Sorry. Please, sorry. Next. You've been busy this evening.
My apologies, Madam Chair. It has been a busy week.
No worries, you're good.
And Madam Chair, members of the commission, this particular agenda item is to budget the South Valley Tax Increment Financing District for the use at the Dolores Huerta Gateway Park, which the director for South Valley Main Street referenced earlier. But just to give some context, a TIF, or a Tax Increment Finance District, is under the Metropolitan Redevelopment Act, and it uses the growth in property tax revenue within a designated area to fund infrastructure improvements. And so this particular TIF district was established in 2016. And so for the last 10 years, that increment of property tax has been set aside very specifically for that area. This evening, we are requesting approval to budget the funds within that that fund, $184,818.06, towards the ongoing phasing of the Dolores Huerta Gateway Park. And the budgeting is the economic development portion, but for questions on the project itself, I have John Bonney here to answer those questions.
Thank you. Do we want to entertain a motion?
I would move approval.
I could second that. Okay, you have a motion, a second. Any discussion questions for either Ms. Tobias or John Barney? Yes, Commissioner, Vice Chair Baca.
I have to make a comment about this, as this project is not in the heart of my district, but at the edge of my district, but by the heart in my soul in many respects, because it's about a mile from where I grew up and where I still own property and where I visit on a regular basis, including the Friday night, what I call the farmers market. I know that's not the correct name for it, but there's 18 consecutive Fridays, except for the 4th of July during the summer, beginning in I think in early June. And that park is truly a jewel. And I remember many years back where before it's called La Familia Market. I remember what it was before it was La Familia, which was the boys' market. That's many, many years ago. And before that, it was a movie theater. So that is an area that I have vested interest in. And again,
For a while, it was a McDonald's.
well, yeah, you're right.
Yes,
You're right.
I remember it being McDonald's.
You're right. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was what was actually there before the park, right?
Yes,
But
good to be done away with it.
the property adjacent was the market and the movie theater event. But in any event, yes. But to see the transformation of that property into the current use is just impressive. It's just impressive. And as I said at the last meeting, I believe, before I came on to the commission, I was not fully aware of the background and the work and the effort that went into this transformation. And I know our staff was very much involved in that, but I also know the South Valley Main Street, headed by Bianca, who had already spoken once, was a major force behind that. But it's absolutely beautiful. It's absolutely spectacular. And together with the road improvements that just were completed, the bus stops, it's went from being the place that I least desired to drive through because of the road construction to literally my favorite place to drive by, and to just look at the beauty of that park and the surrounding area. and then to see the enjoyment and the use of that facility as the farmer's market, yeah, it is, I can think of no better use for this money than what we are proposing to approve tonight. So thank you for everybody who was involved in that. Bianca, the South Valley Main Street Organization, John Barney, I know you put in many hours along with your staff. Jonathan and others have actually been in there, rolling up their sleeves, and just great work, just great work, and congratulations on this.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Benson,
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes. Thank you. You have a due pass.
Thank you all.
Hi, and I just want to add, it's kind of a historical moment because I believe it's the first time that Bernalillo County has cashed out a TIF because we're the only metropolitan redevelopment district in the unincorporated area. So it's the first time we've done a TIF, and even the city of Albuquerque has never cashed out a TIF. So Bernalillo County actually set precedent today. So thank you very much.
Thank you for adding that.
This is a good example of a financial tool that's being used for good things in our community.
Yeah, I was thinking of that the whole time. Great, and we move on to our next item, the number 9A, Economic Development Strategy Deliverables Resolution. And I believe we have Mr.
Madam Chair?
Guerrero. Yes, oh, sorry. Commissioner Barbara Baca, please open us up.
Thank you. Please come up. We have Michael Guerrero and Javier Rojo, who are the co-chairs of our steering committee, but I just wanted to say a couple of words of introduction and thanks. I call this our resolution approving inclusion of community benefits into our economic development policies. There's a lot in that title, but this truly is about community benefits and economic development. And I want to say that I'm very proud of this legislation because this has truly been a team effort. And I want to say that a team of my colleagues up here on the dais, appointing a steering committee, a citizen steering committee, and a team that has put in numerous hours. And I want to thank that steering committee. I know there are members here if you want to raise your hand and wave or stand up, because this has been yeoman's work. Thank you all so much for representing your constituencies in your community. And then I want to thank the community for engaging in this. And this is over a year-long effort of starting with community dialogues in each of our districts, where we got just a resounding, I think, response. People engaged in this. They wanted to know about it. They wanted to talk to us about the importance of economic development relating to accountability, about transparency, and some of the things that rose to the top from those discussions were the importance of workforce development, the importance of supporting local and small businesses, and the importance of environmental sustainability. All of those are embedded in this, what we're calling the rubric, and this rubric should just really be looked at as a tool and an advancement and sort of a modernization, I think I will say, of our economic development policies. And I just want to finish by saying that there's a goal on the top of this rubric that I wanted to read, and then I'll turn it over to you all to talk about, and to Carolyn. But the goal, the overarching goal for Bernalillo County's economic development strategies is to build transparent, accountable, and inclusive economic development systems that strengthen Bernalillo County's competitiveness by supporting small business, attracting and retaining high-value and sustainable industries, investing in innovation and talent, promoting equitable community and workforce development, and enhancing quality of life through placemaking, housing affordability, cultural identity, and environmental responsibility. So Bernalillo County is open for business. We reach out to our counterparts at the city, at the state economic development office, and of course, to our businesses and our community to work with us to continue this good work. So I wanted to turn it over for very specifics on what this resolution includes. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioner Baca, members of the commission. Again, appreciate your time and your work on this. I think all of the steering committee members have our fingers crossed that we're not going to have to meet again. So I want to.
Let's start that way.
Given that, I thought it would be good. I appreciate you acknowledging the committee, but I thought we never actually taken the opportunity to name the folks. So if that's okay, I'd like to name obviously Cochia Rojo with the Rio Grande Development Corporation, Joan Baker with the Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union Local 412, Janice Cardenas with Organized Power and Numbers, Annalisa Gordono, New Mexico Veterans Integration Center, Lisa Uval, who was with HomeWise, but is now at DWS in the housing division. It's been that long, people have moved on to other jobs. Tim McEachin, Rio Real Estate. Tim, I think if that's still where you're at. Carlos Matutes with Green Latinos, and Grant Taylor with PNM Economic Development. So that's the committee. Again, yeah, it's true. People put in a lot of hours. Attendance was always very good and very dedicated group. It's been a real honor working with everybody. And I also do want to acknowledge the staff, been very helpful throughout the process, helped to guide us, give us information that we needed to be able to make good decisions. And so we want to really appreciate them, Ms. Tobias, Marcos Gonzalez, Zulema, the whole team. Really want to appreciate all of them. I believe it was about a month ago, you all gave us the latest charge was for us to further develop the community benefits rubric. We had a draft for you. You wanted a more final draft, which is one of the main tasks that we had to do. You also wanted us to report on the proposed pilot policy and the establishment of the community benefits fund. So we have a concept for that and how that would work. And then the makeup and the establishment of the permanent economic development community advisory board. So all of those recommendations should be in your packets. We don't have them on the slides because they are kind of, the writing's kind of small for the rubric, but you do have all of this information. I'll touch on some high-level things in regards to the rubric. Then I'll turn it over to Coach Rojo to talk about the fund and the committee. So 5 categories, as you named, Commissioner Baca. The first one really focusing on workers, and it covers things from local hiring. So there is a baseline expectation already in the current policies for 50% local hiring. Companies are incentivized to go higher. The highest score they could get is if they have 70% local hires or more. Construction hiring, so their recommendations for projects over $10 million for hiring projections, and the highest level would be a project labor agreement, and then construction apprentices. So the highest level would be 25% of registered apprentices. So there are different percentages based on those scores. The rubric also covers training and education and investments in that, worker health and safety, and livable wages. So obviously the more they provide in terms of wages and benefits, the higher they score. Small business support is the next area, really 2 areas. Procurement. We had a little bit of a discussion about how you measure investments in procurement. Was it by dollar? Was it by number of companies that that industries can procure with? And basically where we ended up was that we're requesting that the companies submit a plan for how they're going to do procurement with local and New Mexico-based communities. And they score higher based on the level of commitment they're making in that plan. And then also small business support. So investing in incubators, small business support, business development, technical assistance, things like that. They score higher based on the percentage that they're willing to invest. Environment and sustainability, it's the biggest category, a lot of areas to cover, from water use, wastewater treatment, air quality, solid waste, energy, and reclamation and restoration. So again, the more, the less impact they have or they're committing to have in terms of our air and water and resources, the higher they score. And so I'm not going to go through all the details, but we spent a lot of time on discussing what those would be. And then the last area is community engagement. And so there is a baseline expectation to do some outreach. The more that they meet with the community, the more that they score. The highest level is actually doing an ongoing community advisory panel or community benefits agreement. That's the highest level of engagement they can have with the community. We also add in, and I think it's under the sustainability part, for communities that are overburdened by pollution. Mountain View is a good example of that, that there's an expectation that they have to work out a community engagement plan with that community, knowing that they already deal with a disproportionate burden of pollution. And then lastly is investment into the community. It's based on a percentage of what they're willing to invest, or they can make contributions to the Community Benefits Fund. They can make additional contributions, or they can do it on their own. They can invest in different programs in the community, nonprofits, things like that. And then also in response to the commission, the last box talks about what that score is going to mean. And so there are recommendations for what percentage of the abatement they should receive based on what they score, or a recommendation for what more they should contribute in terms of a payment in lieu of taxes, or a pilot. And so their score will help to determine what the recommendation will be from the staff to you all as a commission on what those would look like. So that's what the rubric looks like now. A lot of good discussion in terms of really clarifying what makes sense, what's tried to balance the practicality with aspirations. But overall, I think we came out with something that hopefully that you're happy with. So with that, the next slide is there's a scoring example here. I will defer to staff if you want to hear from them. Javier and I will skip over that so that they can actually, if you want to hear from staff about how that works, they can give you those details. But I'll turn it over to Co-Chair Rojo to talk about the Community Benefits Fund and the committee.
Thank you, Co-Chair Guerrero. Madam Chair and members of the committee, as outlined in this slide, this policy formalizes the creation of a separate Community Benefits Fund. Importantly, contributions to the fund are in addition, not a substitute for existing protections for school districts and community colleges. So this doesn't take away from core public funding, it builds on it. The fund is supported in two primary ways. First, through contributions from projects, particularly when applicants choose to support specific rubric priorities, like investing in small business incubators or local nonprofits. Second, after economic development program expenses are covered, remaining pilot revenues are allocated into the Community Benefits Fund. So what this does, it creates a structured way to reinvest a portion of economic development activity back into the community. And importantly, the advisory board will help guide how these funds are used, ensuring that they align with community priorities. At a high level, this is about making sure economic development doesn't just attract investment, but also circulates benefits locally and intentionally. Next, the Economic Development Community Advisory Board. As shown on this slide, the purpose of this board is twofold. First, to evaluate the performance of our economic development policies and strategies, and second, to provide guidance and priorities for how Community Benefits Fund is invested. In terms of structure, the board will include 10 members total, with each commissioner appointing 2 members, 1 primary and 1 alternate. The goal is to ensure a diverse representation, including voices from business, labor, and workforce and economic development practitioners. Functionally, the board will meet at least twice per year. During these meetings, they will hear updates from economic development staff on results and challenges, review recent IRB and LEADA agreements, review pilot funds collected, discuss priorities for how funds should be spent, and evaluate how well the community benefits rubric is working. They will also co-present with staff to the commissioner at least annually with recommendations. So this isn't just a one-time policy. It creates an ongoing feedback and accountability loop. It ensures that as we implement these tools, we continue to evaluate what's working, adjust where needed, and stay aligned with community priorities. Thank you.
Yeah, so, and as we understand it, Commissioners, so potentially final adoption today, and then the county manager and staff will then take the amendments and add them into the current economic development policies for final decision. So we stand for any questions you might have.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification, this motion is for introduction tonight, and so we will be voting on the introduction of this resolution, including the rubrics, and the final vote for adoption will be on, in 2 weeks, on the 28th of this month.
Great.
Yeah, so
Thank you.
I guess we all stand for questions from the commission.
Yes, we all stand for questions. Yes, Commissioner, Vice Chair Baca.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, congratulations on your work and the effort and the hours. As I've said before, I feel bad for appointing Javier to the committee because of the commitment and time that it took, and I say that facetiously, but I appreciate that. And, you know, as I've said several times before, many times, I think, I support the goals of the rubric, but I also want to be very clear and honest about what this does and what it does not do. And so what it does do is it provides a formula for evaluating companies or proposals that come to the county seeking subsidies, financial incentives. But what it does not do is necessarily apply to all business or large business that's seeking to locate in Albuquerque or Bernalillo County. And I just think everybody needs to be clear about that, because based on some of the comments I've heard over the last few meetings, I think there is somewhat of a fundamental misunderstanding about that. It applies to companies that are seeking financial benefits and incentives from Bernalillo County, not from the city of Albuquerque, not from the state of New Mexico, but from Bernalillo County. And I say that because I think that there are things that I would hope that still gets incorporated into our economic development policy, which, by the way, I happened to go look at this today or recently, and I printed out a copy of the current policy. And I know this is not the end of the road, and I hope it's not the end of the road, because there is so much more that can be done. And I mentioned before the executive summary of your plan, which I thought was very, very comprehensive, including many other strategies besides this one strategy. So in my view, this is one strategy. And I'm speaking very personal in terms of the benefits to my community, to my district, and what are the benefits to the working people that I represent. And that's what I'm most focused on. I think that there are potential here with this fund, but, you know, we've heard people that said that this is not gonna work, or it's going to be a deterrent. I'm not sure what is the case, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the next couple of years. But regardless of that, I still think we need to look at what is the vision, overall vision of Bernalillo County for economic development. And we actually had a conversation about that earlier this morning with some members of the city council and some other individuals that are thinking about that in terms of a MRA district. And I totally agreed with that. I think that we should be thinking about not just what we don't want, or not just what somebody who says they want to come here has to do, but we should be thinking about who we want to be here, what type of businesses we want to attract, what kind of incentives that we will offer to get those businesses to come here. And we've talked a lot about, in my view, the number one issue is jobs. Is not just any job, but a high-paying job. And what do we do to incentivize companies to come here and provide those high-paying jobs, which includes training, vocational training, and other opportunities for people that that simply want to maybe perhaps not go a college route, which is perfectly fine for someone, but not for everybody, right? So I really hope, and I, speaking to the county manager as well as my colleagues here, that in terms of our economic strategy, I hope that we are looking at that in a comprehensive way. And I know we're going to incorporate, the policy of resolution regarding the data center and this as well. But there's a whole policy out there. And I think Bernalillo County should lead the way, because it appears from our discussion, the city has not necessarily done that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think we should lead the way in talking about what we do want in our community and how we want our community. For example, I'm working on a project having to do with supporting local arts and artisans. I think that's a strong potential for our economy to have support artists, local artists. Also working on a project having to do with supporting agriculture and youth agriculture. I think that's a historical part of our culture. I'm a big supporter of the trades and vocational education, and I know there's many programs. We actually heard a woman from the State Department of Economic Development who opposed this, quite frankly, but she talked about all the different programs that the state offers. I know the county has some alignments with UNM, for example, but to not have that full inventory of all these programs and to determine what are the gaps that exist to provide jobs in needed vocations like the trades, but also in the medical facility, perhaps in the teaching profession, whatever they may be. I think that is truly what is needed for Bernalillo County to develop this overall economic strategy of what we want our community to be. Aside from this is a part of that. Granted, it's a part of it, but there's so much more that is needed, in my view, for people in my district, and I hope that that is not lost in the shovel. I hope that we look at that and we figure out ways to incorporate these other goals that have already been identified in your plan, have already been identified. You spent a lot of time, a lot of money on this. They've already been identified. We don't have to go back and do new surveys. They've already been identified. The question is, how do we implement these along with this? This is one part of the puzzle, and I think there's others, and I hope that we all look at that and really try to establish a relatively agreed upon vision for this community, what we want, what it looks like, and some strategies of how to, other ways to get there. Because there's a need for that. As you all know, our population in Albuquerque is not stagnant, it is declining. It is declining. I have studies on my desk showing our population is declining. And we hear things about doctors, whether doctors are willing to come because of quality of life concerns. So I think that if we look at this from a holistic point and really develop what we feel is what we want Bernalillo County to look at, and I'd hope that we would use this opportunity to incorporate those components, those thoughts into our economic development policy and come up with a concerted effort to improve the benefit for everybody, including especially those working people that live in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Madam Commissioner Barbara Baca.
I neglected to move approval, so I move approval of the introduction. I apologize.
I'll second that.
Thank
Thank you. Any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner
Madam
Olivas.
Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Olivas and then Commissioner
You can
Benson.
go first.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Benson.
Thank you so much. And Commissioner Olivas, thank you. I apologize. I'm on the phone line, not the video, so I can't see. So thank you for your...
Commissioner Olivas, Commissioner Benson?
Commissioner Olivas?
Commissioner Benson?
Yes, can you...
You're a little
hear me?
muffled. Perhaps, I just want to make sure we can hear you clearly.
Is that better?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Great. Sorry about that. Thank you so much, Madam Chair and Commissioner Olivas, for deferring. I apologize, I'm on the phone, not the video, but I concur with Commissioner Frank Baca that I think if this rubric is to have any value, it will be to be as a tool to attract business and economic development. Currently, as it stands, it just comes across as a deterrent, more of a list of what we don't want, and having the criteria that can then be subjective. So even if they score a high score, it still comes in front of the commission. and we could vote it down, or it could score a low score, and it could come in front of the commission and we could approve it, makes it kind of even worse. And I think tonight's battery storage facility was a good example. It didn't really meet many of the criteria that the rubric holds. I think there are opportunities. Another concern, though, is some of the public comment we got actually from the job creators through the State Economic Development Department, as well as NAOP, actually. And the reason I bring them up is because I think out of all the groups that have spoken, their membership has created the most jobs of possibly any other organization in the state. Maybe conflicting with the Chambers of Commerce, which I also approve. However, the NAOP comment just reflected that the cost to meet these criteria in the rubric offsets any potential gain, and making it even more expensive to bring development to our county, and therefore making the whole process kind of moot and void of value. So I hope we can create some kind of criteria where we can price the criteria and create a dollar value so that we know what companies will or will not benefit from and what value they will or will not bring. It's been clear that IRBs have been a success, especially after fixing issues where companies weren't meeting their obligations and then not paying back their funds. Years ago, that was corrected, and we have clawbacks to prevent that now. And when you look at the job creation that IRBs have created, I think they're worth it. My concern is that this makes the whole process so convoluted and so complicated and so expensive that we'll go back to what Commissioner Frank Baca was saying, is that it'll just add to our declining population. So I'm willing to vote to approve this tonight for public comment, but I just really hope the commission can consider the ultimate outcome of job creation and economic development and and offsetting all the other negative criteria we have, whether it's physicians leaving or Joe Monahan just reported that New Mexico is the 4th highest taxed state in the nation. We just don't incentivize development or growth here. And I hope we can not add to that disincentive. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Benson. Commissioner Olivas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I know this has been around for a while here. This has kind of circled back and forth for various iterations, and a huge thank you to the co-chairs and all the members in the audience that have worked on this. So I continue to support this. I think directionally this is headed the right way, very much so. And, I've been trying to think about how this really resets the way we approach economic development to a certain extent, in that rather than operating from a scarcity mindset where, almost like an abusive relationship, those kinds of things, you're just sort of saying, I'll just take whatever I can get and can't do any better than this. We just got to take what we get, and that should be good enough for us. And we all know up here, because we love this community. That's the reason we're doing these jobs, that our community has a lot to offer, in spite of those challenges, in spite of those negatives. And so to me, this is about resetting that a little bit from a scarcity mindset to, I don't love the analogy, but the abundance mindset, right? Of what do you bring to the table, and shifting it again from sort of a handout to a hand up, right? How can businesses help our community? What are they going to invest if we invest in them? And, anyone that invests in anything, whether it's stocks or real estate or yourself, you're working out, whatever it is you're investing in, right? You're expecting some return, right? And you're evaluating if that return is enough to justify whatever you're putting into it, whether it be money, time, or otherwise. And so I think we're just asking for that type of reset here where we're saying, look, let's just really make sure that the investments we're making of public money, mind you, right, this is taxpayer money. Again, if a company comes here and they want to pay out of their own dime like Amazon did, this does not apply. They can do whatever they want. But if you want public money, you have to be held to a high standard of operating, a high standard of what you're going to commit to the community. And that standard that you're willing to commit to will be reflected in what we're going to commit to you. So I really think we have an opportunity here with this to set the pace at a state level. We've heard our Speaker of the House talk about this in an op-ed. I've heard city councilors discussing this. I think this is an opportunity we have. Once again, my colleagues here did the same thing on the Safer Community Places Ordinance. And we have an opportunity once again to set the pace for the whole state, frankly, on asking a little bit more of our partners. And that's the point here, is that we are partners. We are not victims. We are not just, at the will of businesses. We are partners. We're investing in them. They're investing in us. What are we getting for that deal? So I'm not going to go through any of my specific I wouldn't even call them concerns, but they're really just, I know you all worked on this tremendously, and so I want to offer, working with the sponsor, I'm going to work on perhaps just some very slight language changes in here that I think will alleviate some of my, again, I don't really want to even call them concerns, but just things that I've flagged in reading this with a very detailed look, that I think will make it easier to understand, easier to apply, fair, and keep that direction, right? That I think we all, most of us agree, the direction here is solid. It's just making sure, because if we are gonna set the pace, we gotta get this pretty darn close to right, and I think it's almost there. So I'm not gonna go through all that, but I did wanna just make a couple of comments, or actually requests of our staff, of the manager. And one thing is just, this is just a comment generally, but through this process, I've learned that we're not being totally correct in what we're saying about holding local school districts and community colleges harmless. We are not. We are keeping the money, and we are spending that money on programs that we appropriate to. So we take the money, and actually the understanding from the conversation I had with Director Gonzalez and manager was CNM actually said, we don't need any of that back. We don't have any specific programs that we're interested in. We just think that the job creation, generates more clients for us, more young people that, well, you don't have to be young at any age that go and get retraining students. And then for APS, we put that money into the community schools program, but again, that's under our jurisdiction. So it rubs me a little bit the wrong way, because we live in a state with a long history of colonialism and, that kind of imperial control, and we know better than you. And, I'm not saying that's what we're doing. I don't think that's exactly the same, but we're not being totally honest if we're saying that we are protecting tax revenue to local school districts and community colleges. We are redirecting that revenue to internal programs around those subjects. So I just wanted to say that we need to be honest about that, and we could or should probably have a discussion about that in the future, but not in the context of this. And then the request for staff is, I continue to, and I sent this question to manager and executive team about, I continue to have a minimal understanding of the pilot fund and the economic development department, and what is going into the pilot fund every year, what is going out, what is it going to, and what is the overall funding stream of the economic development department, because it's very important in the makeup of the community benefits fund. It says, after economic development department programmatic expenses, the remaining pilot will be distributed to the benefit fund. And that's a really important caveat. And if we don't fully understand how much money is being taken off of the top there essentially, because that's what that tells me, is we're taking that off first and then we'll distribute. We need to really have an understanding as the appropriators here of what we're appropriating. And it's not clear when we, the next item is the budget. So it folds into there. It's not totally clear to me what we're paying for with pilot and what we're paying for with general fund. And I think we really need to understand that so that we understand how much funding we will have in the future. And my goal, just, for transparency, is I think the whole pilot should be community benefits. And I think we probably can't do that right now, or next week when we hopefully pass this. But I think we could create some kind of a sunset, some kind of a runway that says in 3 years, the full pilot goes to community benefits, not, or put some kind of guardrails on that. Obviously, we want to protect community schools and those things, but anything beyond that, I really think needs to be directed to that. So those are my comments. Really fully support this. Directionally, I think it's fantastic and commend everybody's work on this, and looking forward to that last little push to just slightly refine this to make sure that it's absolutely the model for the state, which it already is. But thank you.
Through the chair, if I may, let me start with the last comments first. On the budget, we're working on the information requested, and we'll make that available to all of you before we take the final vote, or before y'all take your final vote, either on the budget or on this economic development approach. The second thing I wanted to just affirm is that the money received now that we use for pilot money that we use in our partnership with APS is in partnership with APS. And up till, probably to this budget time, all of the money that we receive that goes to APS, we're using to to pay for APS staffing in partnership with them on community schools. And I just wanted to make that clear because we're not doing anything to them. We're doing this in partnership with them. And I would say that, especially as it relates to community schools, this has been a very high priority for APS, so much so that in addition to the money that we contribute, they're now contributing their own money to staff community schools. The second thing is it relates to CNM. CNM, and I think it's worth us revisiting this conversation with them. Actually, we'll do that before the final vote. But for CNM, they have played a very active role in being innovative as it relates to their partnerships with us and other institutions, because they, I think, at least from my discussion with staff, have always had a real core understanding that their role relative to economic development is both in the classroom and in the field. And so what I'm hoping is our partnership with CNM grows, especially around the work that we want to continue to do with our internships, fellowships, and both in terms of hands-on education and then getting young people into jobs, some of what we heard today, but really under the leadership of Danette and Community Services, we're trying to take all of our internship, fellowship, and those kinds of activities and put them in one program area. So we really are partnering with not just our nonprofits, but even our departments to have those really solid experiences for young people so that they're able to launch into good paying jobs and or furthering their education. But we'll make an affirmation with CNM because it's been a while since I've spoken to them about this, but I just want to assure you that the approach we have with APS is really being done in partnership with them. The last thing I wanted to say is that I do recognize that this part of what we're doing is just a new approach to what our partnerships look like with the business community. And I wanted an opportunity to say to the volunteers that worked on this board for a long time. I want to say a year, but I don't actually know, and I think for some of them it feels longer. But what I really wanted to say to them is a very sincere thank you, because the level of energy and focus and attention they've put into this has been really tremendous. And I will say the economic development staff has been working double time, both on launching this year our housing initiative, launching this last year, our new economic development approach, and being able to maintain other activities and tasks that we've been giving them for a while. All that is to say that I do think we're at an inflection point, and so your point that I just want to really acknowledge both you and to Commissioner Frank Baca, I think the point you're raising about being earnest, deliberate, and focused is going to be incredibly important, because we have a really small team, and you're right, we want to lead and we want to choose those areas that we're really going to knock it out of the park and make a big difference. I think as it relates to the financing, I think those are all really important questions. I will just say that as much as possible, our new mechanism, which we're going to talk about next relative to budgeting and really being able to plan 3, 4, 5 years out, is really an exciting opportunity to determine under what terms and conditions we're using what resources to accomplish what goals. So we're looking forward to the challenge.
Thank you, County Manager. Okay, I think I do have one. I just also want to thank everybody, and I think this is the kind of example of thoughtful, intentional process and us trying things to make things work. I do always think it's incredible when the doomsday talk around how this doomsday, when I do believe, and throughout this process, right, it's been that at the end of the day, this commission still votes. Like, we could choose to not accept any recommendations that come out of this community advisory board or the rubric. This commission still gets that vote. Is that correct, sponsor Commissioner Baca?
Madam Chair, of course, this is a representative commission, and we represent our constituents. And this is, I do believe, I second what you're saying here, is that this is an example of exemplary community participation, and the result, I believe, it is going to be very, very positive and have a big impact on the future. So.
Thank you very much. And I think, like some folks have said this evening, we are in a position where we can, because of, and I believe, right, that most of us, every one of us that are here and elected by our constituents were born and raised here in New Mexico, many of us having been here for generations. And as much as it is important, and this is enough for me, what we've heard, the work, the time and intention is enough for me to pass it. But I also want to just call on that our ancestors have been stewards, as somebody mentioned, and the indigenous folks that have been stewards to this land, air, water. When people say, this is why we can't have good things, I say this is why we do have good things. The good things that I grew up with are the land, the air, the water, and the people, and the animals that we get to see, from the insects to the birds to the, and our most precious water. When we talk about growth and just giving away because we need jobs or something, we don't have enough water. The reason why people come here, travel here to stargaze. Scientists and astronauts come here to study our cosmos because we can, because they can, because we have that type of sky, because we are, and our ancestors have been protecting that land, air, and water for generations. So I'm just really proud of the way that this thinks about both of those things together. How are we building the economies we need, the economies that fit for what our quality of life, which we have identified here tonight and our ancestors have identified for generations. So I support this wholly, and I just wanted to allow you to close out for us.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Urge your support.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can you please call the roll, Clerk Kavanaugh?
Yes. Commissioner Benson.
Yes.
Commissioner Olivas.
Yes.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes, thank you, thank you. We have a do pass, yay, thank you. Okay, quickly, moving on to the next item, 9B. Just the small little item of our budget. our fiscal year 27-28 biennium budget, Director Haley Kadish, to present. Welcome, Ms. Kadish, Director.
Thank you. Madam Chair, Commissioners, good evening. Pull up my, do you want me to pull it up or? Sorry. Yeah. I can maybe start while we're pulling it up. My name is Haley Kadish, and I am the Policy and Budget Director. I'm here tonight to present for the fiscal year 27 and 28 budget for introduction. As you all know, I am very new to this role, so I want to start my presentation by flagging that I really couldn't be here without some really amazing county employees, and so I want to give a little bit of a shout out. I want to thank the Budget Office. We are a small but mighty team, and they did a lot of work to get to the point of being able to present this to you all tonight, so I want to thank them. And then I also want to give a special shout out to Deputy County Manager Shirley Reagan. Her guidance and leadership throughout this whole process, I just could not have done this without you. So I'm standing on the shoulders of giants up here, and I'm excited to get to share this with you. And don't worry, you'll get to hear from Shirley later because I'll drag her up here. All right, so let's go ahead and dig in. So as you are all well aware, the county doesn't adopt its budget in one fell swoop. It's a series of actions that have to happen. These separate actions are about appropriating funding, creating positions, approving the execution of contracts. So that's why we have 7 separate actions that we're requesting that you'll make. So I thought I would walk you through each one. So the first one is to approve the general fund budget. So that's the $478 million. That's that first action that we're requesting. The second one is about non-general fund budget. So that's the $364 million. The third requested action that we have is allowing for multi-year projects to carry over funds into fiscal year 27. And then the fourth one, I'm on 4, right? Yeah, fourth one, start to lose count. This is really about one-time funding. So this is where the requests that came in from departments, things that they needed in order to be able to carry forward the commission's priorities and to continue providing their levels of service. That's where the one-time requests come in, is that 17 million, and that is general fund and non-general fund one-time requests in that fourth item. The fifth action is about grants and approving moving forward with grants that are listed we have an attachment. And then the sixth item is about creating new positions. So it's 17 new positions that we're proposing with this budget. And then the seventh item is about allowing the county manager to execute contracts in the contract list. And so that's another attachment. So we're going to dig into some of these today, but I just wanted to walk you through all 7, knowing that members of the public might be watching this too. So really walking through what we're asking you to approve for introduction today. So before we move on, I want to remind everyone sort of what the process was that led us here. So this budget process started way back in October 2025. So it's been a while, and there's been several key milestones. So in that time, the county manager has had retreats in January and March. your Board of Commissioners body has had budget workshops in December, February, and March. And you've also then had the public hearing. So that's the last time that you heard from us, was on March 19th. And so during that public hearing, departments got to get up here and tell you a little bit about their story, what they've been doing for the year, all their accomplishments. They also got to share some of the challenges that they're facing and kind of a look ahead at fiscal year 27. So that was that long day on March 19th with lots of department presentations. And then here we are today, April 14th, where we're introducing the budget. So I want to walk you through sort of some of the process that's happened since the public hearing, since that's the last time you heard from us about the budget. So as you'll remember, on March 19th, we presented to you a budget that had a shortfall of almost $8.5 million. So you can see we had projected revenue of $471 million and expenditures of $480 million, and that ends up with that $8.5 million shortfall. We talked about the work that we would do over the next month to come back to you, and we're here today back to you after doing all this work, these budget balancing activities. So this is where we really dug in to see if there were opportunities to adjust our revenue, looking at our sources, if there's alternative sources, adjusting our projected revenue. We also took a hard look at expenditures and tried to make reductions, identified some opportunities for reducing expenditures. Those new requests that we've talked a lot about in the various workshops and the public hearing, we took another hard look at those, how we're prioritizing them, and we looked for opportunities to seek alternative funding. So that's sort of what we've been doing over the last month. And we're coming back to you today with a revenue estimate of $489.6 million and an expenditure estimate that's the same amount. So you'll see that's sort of how we got to the balanced budget amount that we're proposing today. So we'll dig into that number, but I just want to make sure it was clear where we came from the public hearing and kind of the process that we're going through. I'll give you some more detail about the specific numbers and what's in those adjustments as well. So if we start at the top of this table, you'll see that $471.7 million. So that was the revenue projection that we had a month ago at the public hearing. We are recommending several adjustments to the revenue calculation. So based on historic returns of our investment, our treasurer is very good at this, and the investment that we're earning, or the interest that we're earning on our investments is coming in consistently higher than what we've been budgeting. And so we are recommending an increase in this recurring revenue source, and it's $4 million a year is what we're recommending. We're also recommending an adjustment to the county's equalization distribution. So this is funding that we get from the state. It has historically come in higher. We get this funding one time a year. It's come in higher than what we've budgeted. And so we feel comfortable recommending a $500,000 increase in recurring revenue here. And then what you'll see, the third revenue adjustment, this is where we're recommending using fiscal year 25 fund balance appropriations for eligible uses. And so that's $13.4 million, and that's not recurring revenue. And so we'll dig deeper into that piece today as well. So that would bring us, if you add all those together, if you add those to the $471.7 million, we end up at the $489.6 projected revenue. So then on the expenditure side, if we go back to the $480 million that we started with at the public hearing, that was the expenditure estimate that we had. We have a couple recommendations for adjustments that we want to make on the expenditure side. So we've added in here the new requests that came in from departments that we've prioritized, and we've split them up to show which are recurring requests and which are one-time funding requests. And so you'll see we have $6.7 million in new recurring requests that came in from departments that we think need to be prioritized in fiscal year 27. And we have about $6.7 million in one-time requests that we also are recommending we prioritize and fund in fiscal year 27. That third line of the expenditure adjustments, that's a place where we're truing up in employee healthcare insurance costs. We have some other personnel costs in there. We're slightly reducing the amount of vacancy savings that we're projecting in fiscal year 27, and that comes out to the $1.4 million. So that's an expenditure increase of $1.4 million. The next two are places where we're recommending expenditure decreases. So moving the natural resources and clean team payroll costs. So those are county teams that we're recommending. They're currently funded with general fund dollars. Some of the clean team is already currently funded with ESGRT funds. We're recommending that those costs go from general fund and they get assigned to ESGRT. So no actual changes to the staffing of those teams or the service levels provided, just shifting where they're being funded. And ESGRT is the Environmental Services GRT Fund. So this is a GRT that is set up and dedicated specifically to environmental services. So that's $2.5 million. So that's a reduction in expenditures for the general fund of $2.5 million. The debt service payments that the county makes is the next line. And when we pay off debt, we will have budgeted recurring payments to pay our debt. And as we pay off debt, those payments are no longer necessary. So those are recurring expenditures that go away when we pay off debts. And so there's almost $3 million in payments that would go away and could be a reduction in expenditures because they're no longer going toward that debt because we've paid it off. So there's some additions in this and some subtractions, and you end up, if you start at 480 million, you end up at that 489.6 million. So that's where you see there's no shortfall or surplus. It's just balanced. So I know folks are used to looking at revenues by source. So you've seen this figure before. So this shows how our original revenue budget fit into the sources, and then it's showing the additional revenue and how that will layer on top. Similarly, here's the expenditures by division, and then the additional, and here we've even split out of the recurring new requests, which ones are personnel and which ones are just operating. So we've split that approximately 6.7 million number to show which ones are positions, 1.6 million in positions, and 5 million in just operating requests. So of those new requests, these are the ones that we are prioritizing and recommending we fund. These are recurring items. We are recommending we use 6.7 million in fund balance appropriations to fund these recurring items. And you have these as an attachment too. I know it's probably hard to see trying to fit it all on one slide, but so by department you can see each of the requests. And then we also have here the items that are truly one time that we're proposing funding with fund balance appropriations of these one-time costs. Before we move into kind of next steps and how we're gonna do things differently in the coming budget cycle and fiscal year, I want to flag that there's a lot of uncertainty built into these numbers. So it's a little bit scary to come up with a plan when there's all of this stuff happening in the world. And even at the state level, policies that might affect our ability to collect revenue, those types of things. So I really just wanted to flag here that this is the plan. These are projections, but there's a lot going on. So really just wanted to re-elevate these to all of you, knowing that there's a lot of uncertainty that we're dealing with as we try to do revenue projections, expenditure projections, that kind of thing. So this practice of using some of our fund balance to cover our expenses is not something that we want to make a habit of as a county organization. And so what I'd like to talk with you about is how we're going to be different in the coming year and what you'll see happening with the county administration going forward. So some of the things that we're going to be doing are really looking at monitoring the budget and looking at expenditures differently, really scrutinizing things throughout the fiscal year. So that includes, we're going to really focus on staffing analytics. Personnel is a huge part of the county's general fund budget. And so it's really important that we make sure that we're making very good conservative decisions here. So when we're filling vacant positions, if a department requests to fill a vacant position, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny and justification required in that. Similarly, when there's personnel changes, so maybe there's temporary pay increase increases, special projects pay, there's going to be a lot of scrutiny of those. Just making sure that we're really justifying that this aligns with the commission's priorities. This is really necessary to continue carrying forward the vision going forward. We're also going to be closely monitoring and analyzing overtime, and that might result in us asking to do some staffing analyses to make sure that we have the staffing complements right as we go about funding these operations. We don't want to have to use overtime and rely heavily on overtime, and it can be an unpredictable expense. So we want to make sure that we have the right number of employees to provide the service level that you all expect. So beyond staffing, we're also going to dig really deep and analyze investment requests. So when I say investments, I mean like expenditures, requests to spend funding. So definitely looking at travel and training, really focusing on what certifications are necessary, what travel is necessary, and ensuring that the teams that need those services are able to get them, but really scrutinizing those requests. We're also going to look really hard at the carryovers that come from year to year. So funds might have been budgeted in fiscal year 27. A department may not have spent them all and they'll ask to carry them over. We're going to really look at those and make sure, like, did you need the funding? Like, we're really going to scrutinize those. They already go through a scrutiny process, but we're just going to be like extra tough on those going forward. We're also going to be proposing amendments and policies and amendments to policies and procedures that might impact expenses. And so that's really where this new policy and budget department can be helpful. So this is new capacity to look at our policies and procedures and see if there are places where the policies that we have self-set up, we often talk about, mandated expensive things that the state or the feds might require of us, but we also as an organization require a lot of ourselves. And so if there are things that we're doing that come with a cost, we're going to work on defining those and really evaluating those. And then finally, we're going to work with procurement to analyze the strategic use of staff and contracts. We're going to make sure that we're getting good oversight. We're negotiating costs. We have a great procurement team, so we're going to really lean on them. This is an area that the increases in contracts are just astronomical, and so especially on these like IT services. And so we're really trying to get our arms around this and try to make sure that we're negotiating these contracts and keeping things under control from the contractual side. And then finally here, I want to flag that we're going to launch an incentive program to reward employees for ideas for improvement. So if they have ideas to improve processes, to save costs, to improve safety, that's very important to us. And then also opportunities to help improve the health and wellness of employees. So we're going to be launching a program that solicits ideas from employees, which I feel like is where all the answers are anyway. So that's going to be really good. So that's on the expenditure side. On the revenue side, some of the changes that we're going to be implementing. So we're going to try to implement we're calling it a fee philosophy, but basically acknowledging that we need something to apply to all of the fees. The county charges various fees through various programs. We want to look at all of them and be very strategic about it. We know that there are going to be some programs that the commission wants to subsidize. There's going to be some programs that the commission wants to have be self-sustaining. And so the idea of a fee philosophy is to allow you to give that direction, that strategic direction, and then we can go apply that to the fees and come back with recommendations. It also could be an opportunity for us to build in fee escalators where necessary so that we don't have to keep coming back each time, or end up in the scenario where it's like, this fee hasn't been updated in 30 years kind of thing. So we're going to be looking closely at fees. We're also going to be looking for opportunities to allocate indirect and overhead cost to programs. So this can be common with grant applications. If you get grant funding, every grant person I know hates it if you say that grants are free money, right? Because there's a lot of work that goes on around the grants. And so really making sure that we're allocating the full cost of administering grant programs to the grant. That's one way to shift costs that otherwise would be charged to the general fund, basically the general fund subsidizing the grant program. We can charge that to the grant if we build it into the application at the beginning. We're also going to look at opportunities to charge overhead costs to non-general fund programs. That can be things like, if you are using the county's IT and all of that, right? So really capturing the full cost of doing business. We're also going to be looking for opportunities to pursue additional outside funding. So that can be identifying grant opportunities maybe the county hasn't gone for that really align with the county's priorities. And it also is going to be about really enhancing the rigor with which departments pursue some of that outside funding. So that's the revenue side and how we're going to be thinking about how can we expand the size of the pie. We're also going to try to implement a very different approach to the budget process, and making budget decisions. We're considering and we're exploring, we're getting ready for this concept of zero-based budgeting. And so this is something that we're going to work toward for fiscal year 28. It's a heavy lift for organizations, so I want to preface this with we might have to prioritize which programs we really focus on with zero-based budgeting because it is a lot of work, but it's very valuable for decision makers. What we would do is we would basically inventory all the programs that the county is providing, and we're going to define what's the service level that's currently being provided. That each program has a service level that it's currently meeting. And then we allocate costs. So ideally you get to the point where you would have these sort of decision packages where you could look at these are all the programs, these are the service levels. There might be some service levels that you want to just keep at the current service level. There's some programs where you might want to keep it at the same service level. There also might be some programs where you might decide, this is something that we're mandated to do, but it's a lower priority for the commission, and we want to provide the base minimum level of service that's required because we have to do this, and it's not a priority for us. So that's where that base, most fundamental level of service comes in. The current might be what we've historically done, and then there can be enhanced levels of service. If you want to turn up the volume on that service and provide a higher level of service to the community, these decision packages allow us to start exploring that because we've defined the programs, we've defined the service levels, and now we can start to play with, do we want more or less of each of these things? So it can be really helpful for decision makers. This is going to be a big push for our team, all the teams, because I need everyone to help me, guys. And so I'm really excited about that. But with fiscal year 28, expect to see a very different approach to budget decisions, and hopefully you'll have a lot more information in front of you as you make these really important decisions. So just a snapshot of kind of where we're going. So in 2 weeks, we'll have the final adoption of the fiscal year 27 budget and the fiscal year 28 plan. And then we spend time internally doing a lot of work that then eventually gets us to June 1st is a big deadline for us with state DFA. And so with that, I'm going to ask Shirley, would you like to come up and we can stand for questions together? Shirley's my buddy. I need her with me all the time.
Thank you so much. And yes, Director Shirley Reagan.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, I just want to say she doesn't give herself enough credit. She came into baptism by fire, and she's still a whole person, still standing, and hasn't quit on us, so that's a good thing.
No way. This is
good.
So fun.
And everybody is rallied around her, so that's what's helpful too, is, we have a good team and all our staff and a good leadership, so.
Thank you, Shirley. I always appreciate you. And thank you. Okay, so Commission. Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
All right, thank you. So I want to preface these questions by saying I know you're new, so.
I won't have any answers, but we'll get them.
You may or may not, but I have a number of questions that I kind of want to drill into here because as helpful as the work sessions were, the problem with them is that we don't have any finality to them during the process, right? The answer to every question is sort of, well, we'll see, we'll look at it, we'll check in next time. And so this is really when we get the rubber meets the road. This is really when, and so I would say one of my concerns or suggestions is that in the future, we allocate a work session after introduction, or maybe it's not even a work session, maybe it's a special meeting, because the problem here is, right, this actually isn't as long of a night as I thought it might be because of the gravity of the item before this, but we're trying to consider these. We've already had like 5 hours of meetings before this meeting even started, and then we're going to consider $1 billion budget And we're gonna do the same thing in 2 weeks, basically. So we're sandwiching this thing with a whole bunch of other stuff. It's the most important thing we'll do all year, by far. And we're just kind of like, next year, we really need another check-in that's dedicated to this. And, you know, as the city council will call it, a budget markup, right? We need to really have some dedicated time for this and not like, the work sessions are helpful, but actually I think we could do with less of those if we have something after this, because this is the real deal. All right, so with that, I'll jump in. With the one-time items here, would it be possible to separate that into a separate resolution? The true one-time stuff.
So we do have let me go back up to the resolutions. I think it might be helpful to have it all up here. So if you look at this top resolution, this is the one-time, what we're proposing using one-time funding for. Am I correct in understanding that what you're saying is the one-time versus the reoccurring of new appropriations? Is that how you're thinking about it?
Well, I'm talking about, so on this chart, attachment C, there's 3 columns. I'm talking about the second column that's labeled one-time items. And I think this is what we're calling true one-time items. And I'm going to ask some questions about some of those too, because I'm curious how they're truly one-time. But if they're truly one-time items, I'm just asking, can we put those in a separate resolution versus just having them rolled into the whole budget? Because that's normally how we treat one-time stuff, is it's one time, so it kind of rides separately. So that's one request or consideration that I just think would be helpful. So, for example, countywide physical drug and alcohol testing, $250,000. So this is labeled as true one time. So are we only going to test people one time? So this year everybody's getting tested and then never again?
Madam Chair and Commissioner. Good question. I can see how it would look that way. This is actually about a peak in hiring that results in the need to do additional drug and alcohol testing for new hires. We consistently have drug and alcohol testing throughout the year for existing employees, but as you know, we heard the sheriff talk about getting fully staffed. So we see an increase in, as hiring goes up, the expenses associated with those drug and alcohol tests of new employees is increasing. And so that's where we were treating this as one time, is because we don't expect for that hiring, you know, once we've achieved that peak, we won't be hiring consistently at that level going forward.
Okay. And I feel like both of those, well, really all of those other HR initiatives, other than maybe the consulting, they can be done as a one-time item, but I don't think you really want them to be one-time items, do you? I mean, if we're talking about employee engagement events or recruitment advertising or the temporary staff that are in the FLAME program, we want those to be recurring, even though they can just be, we can do them this year, and then if we can't do them next year, it's not going to really be a huge problem, right? Okay.
Through the chair, if I can address some of those HR items that and I don't know if I have Ms. Bernadette in the audience to support. However, our intent there was to prioritize what obviously what the one-time versus the recurring. And we felt that specifically for the employee engagement, that there was still very much an analysis that needed to be done to understand the timing and current expenditures. And so we felt like we could go 1 year, and it was actually, I think, reduced from the original request so that we could at least satisfy some of the need in that area. As far as the FLAME program, we are looking at other funding sources that can help alleviate some of that request, looking at existing need, because we have been funding this program with one time, I want to say, for the last couple of years, and we're wanting to ramp up that program. However, again, additional analysis needed, and then we wanted to build some curriculum around what those positions look like. So could we focus on behavioral health and looking at some funding sources there or in other areas? So we want to keep the program going. However, we felt that to prioritize other areas, we could satisfy with the one time, and then understanding looking forward that it's something we do want to build in recurring. So 1 more year. Thank
Got
you,
it.
Mr.
No.
Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Understood. All right, so moving on down the list here. So there's electronic plan review software and grant management software under both planning and technical services. I mean, my experience, all the software stuff we do, that comes back next year. Are we planning on not reviewing plans next year?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, in terms of the hardware, those are just purchases of actual computers. We have, is that the one
It
you're
says
looking at?
software.
Software?
Planning and development, first item would be a good example. Electronic plan software.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, I can speak to that, and
Oh, okay.
DCM Townsend can jump in. So through PDS, we're implementing a new software for the permitting system. Right now, that is a per seat type software maintenance contract. So we have this as a one-time expense for this year because Director Benavides from IT is going to explore getting a site license for that and see if we can negotiate one that we're not paying by seat anymore. And so the reason you see this in two locations is Planning and Development Services is paying for their seats in there, and we're paying for the ones in development review.
Got it, understood. There's a pretty large expense for MDC for conversion to 12-hour shifts. Can you explain how that's one time?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Olivas, so we're currently working with the union on that, and there's going to be implications in the CBA. So we can't guarantee that, so that's why we did it as one-time funding. If we're able to secure that in the future of that scheduling, we will look to make it reoccurring, but since it's not a guarantee, we didn't want to put it in the reoccurring budget.
Okay. So I think that actually reinforces more my first thing about separating this and maybe even delineating within that what I would call pilot programs versus one time. Like there is, I guess there's something in here for the Emergency Communication Center or something like that to do a hardware system. I mean, that I think we all get that's truly one time. These other things I think are kind of pilot programs that we'd like to continue, assuming they work and they generate value.
Yeah, if through the chair, I think Commissioner Olivas, I do want to just acknowledge that there are some actions we're taking that we want to be in the base budget. And that, so part of what we were trying to do was prioritize those that were a little on the bubble, I think the way the warden just described, those where we had opportunities for renegotiation, those to your point that are truly one time. And part of the objective, I think, especially as it relates to hiring new staff, is making sure that we're prioritizing anything that's one time that really should be in an ongoing budget into the next year's ongoing budget. And that's really the reason that that the staff was really, I think, Haley, explaining all the changes we need to make in our budgeting approach so that we're weaning ourselves off of using one-time dollars for reoccurring activities. So that's an excellent question and something, a document we can easily produce, before the final vote.
Right, I just think it's a little bit more honest with the intent of sort of, these are things that we expect will probably come back if we have the resources. Other things that are just truly one time that, are truly just one time. And then one more question on this, and I didn't see this anywhere in the presentation, the PowerPoint, but on the back of this chart, there's stuff from the PILT fund, and the one that caught my eye is $400,000 for shifting 3 positions to the general fund in the assessor's office.
I can speak to that. This is one of the items that Assessor Lotta, he underwent an audit, and there was an interpretation that there was positions that are currently in the assessed valuation fund should be moved back to the general fund. And because we couldn't bear that burden in the general fund, and then we're also looking at the legal interpretation, he agreed to allow that to stay in the assessor's fund, valuation fund for right now, those positions.
So what, is this just, this was in the agenda packet, this chart, so this just is an old version or something like that?
You're talking about under the assessors on the back of it? The assessors shifting 3 existing positions?
Yes.
Yeah. We ended up holding that off
So that
for
doesn't,
the reasons I said.
so that's not accurate in the packet? Okay. So
No,
just if we
it's
can update-
accurate because it's saying it's in the valuation fund.
It says shifting them to the general fund.
But we ended up not doing it, so we didn't take them out of the valuation. That's why they're showing that they're staying in the valuation fund.
Do you mean to say that you left it in just to demonstrate the action that ultimately was taken?
Okay, I think I understand
Correct.
it.
Okay.
I get it, because it's under that fund. Okay, it's a little confusing, but I get it now.
It was just the name of the budget request.
Yes, it's because when I think at one of the workshops, we showed it as an addition to the general fund. And then you had mentioned, Commissioner Olivas, about talking to the assessor. So we went back and asked him if he could delay the movement until we did more research. And because we couldn't afford at this point, the budget was already out of balance and could he play his part and not have an increase in the general fund for those positions? So.
Got it. No, thank you. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the questions I had, the specifics, but just a couple comments. Would really appreciate if we could separate the one time and then delineate that a little bit more. I think that would be helpful. I like the zero base thing. I don't know if I fully understand it. But what I think is actually an even more interesting concept, and maybe it works with that too, but one of our city councilors was quoted, saw some things that she was saying about the city's budget that it's not doing either. They're not doing this either. But having an outcomes-based budget, right? So that we're not just tracking how many people we serve or how many we want to serve or how many people we hire, but what are the outcomes? What is our investment actually producing, and how does that drive down costs over time in other areas, right? So community schools might be a great example of an investment in that has a real outcome in the long run that drives down costs hopefully at MDC and YDC. So anyway, that's just some food for
If you
thought.
go back, if I could, can you go back to the slide that you have this on? Because I think what you're saying, I just want to reinforce this, that the idea behind zero-based budgeting, and what it really means is you start the budget from scratch. Literally, you act like you're starting a new department and say, what are all the things that we need versus what do we want versus what's required? And you measure it against what are the levels of service. So that the decision packages, as was being described, really results in us being able to say, because ultimately we want to be able to come and say to you is, by making this cut, it takes this much longer for a clean team to get out. By making an increase in Y amount or 4 people on the clean team, we're going to be able to do Y amount more cleanups or this amount of tonnage of garbage collection. So we're going to work really hard. And I think the point I just want to lift up is that we are going to have to start with a couple of really key programs to learn this and really then be able to give you, as you're making decisions here, much more clarity as you're making trade-offs in the future.
Understood. Well, I really do think that, although I get it, it's hard to turn the whole ship. This is your second budget. It's my 4th. This needs to happen, like sooner rather than later. There's not years and years and years to wait. So, I really think it needs to happen sooner than later. And that takes me really to my larger concern here is that I don't think this budget is my least favorite budget of the 4 that I've worked on, because we really don't have anything that I can really point to and say, this is transformative. This is, a few years ago, the raises that we did, the expansions we did in mental health teams and, fire MCT teams, the sheriff's MCT teams, staffing at the sheriff's department. I mean, the housing stuff, this is largely a, we're calling it a no growth budget, but in reality, revenue grew substantially, actually. There's significant growth in revenue, but there's really not a significant growth in services, I hope there's growth in outcomes, but at least as measured by what I think is a pretty important metric, which is investments in people. I don't like the direction this is headed, because we're really not adding a lot of new employees in new areas, except the exception of MDC, that I think is a really important investment, because that creates a career ladder there to a greater extent. So I appreciate that. But the other areas that we're adding, well, I know they're important, and I heard all those requests. They don't really show that we are turning over the couch cushions and putting our money into the most core areas. Public safety is most of our budget, right? And it's also the biggest concern of the public, of our business community. And while this keeps things status quo, it's status quo despite substantial revenue growth that's still happening. It's not robust, but it's still growth. So that concerns me about going forward. I don't think we're entering an environment that's going to get better. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think it's going to get better from here. I think it's going to get worse. And that's a problem when you're rating the reserves and we're not investing in employees. And I keep going back to that. But when we started budget development, the state was not going to give any raises. Then they amended the budget at the last minute and put raises in. The city's giving raises to their people. I haven't seen the water utility budget yet, but I bet there's going to be raises there. And so after big investments to catch our workforce up, now we're falling behind. And so I'm not convinced that we did everything we could to focus this on the core service delivery agents, which are our people. And so I know that, again, things change through the whole process outside of our control, what other governments did. But, the city is looking at turning over 60-some positions that they're removing. We're not removing anything in this budget. There's nothing being cut. I know that at the beginning of the budget process, we were approached with the idea of a tax increase, a 16th increment. And we did not pursue that path, and I'm glad we didn't. But the pledge was, we're going to show through this budget that we are going to squeeze every drop out of this sponge and prove to the public, to the commission, to everybody that we've done everything we could to pull this down to the, I don't want to say the bones, but to the necessities. I fundamentally don't think that's happened, and we've just added more stuff, which is mostly investments in tech companies, frankly. Again, not in people. There's very few things here that are our people, our workforce. And so I'm disappointed in that. It's not a comment on the budget team or the finance staff. It's just, I'm very disappointed in that. And I don't know if I've always voted for the budget. It's the most important thing we do, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to support this one, because I'm just not confident that it sets us up for next year to be to be able to be confident that we are in a sound fiscal position. That's our number one job, is to pass this budget and set the county up for fiscal success. And I think we're continuing down this road of one time for operations, and we're adding more into the operational bucket when we're saying that we're going to pare back and focus on core. But I don't think we have. So, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Oliva. Yes, Commissioner, Vice Chair Baca.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I had a specific question, or line of questions, I guess, in regards to the, I think it's page 7 of your presentation, the the budget shortfall and the fund balance appropriation of $13,378,000, which is what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that was a transfer, a fund balance transfer into the general fund. Is that correct? I see one nod and one nod.
I think it's it is, some of it is directly in the general fund already from savings, and some of it is coming from other funds.
Right. That was,
to cover things, yes.
thank you. And so I guess my final thought is that money is, some of it is coming from other funds. And so there must have been enough money in those other funds to total up that 13.3, and I presumably there's still more money in those funds over and above the 30% that we're mandated by law to keep in a separate fund. I mean, I'm just asking, is that the case?
We have reserves larger than 30% of the required.
So Madam Chair, Commissioner Frank Baca, the fund, those are fund balances in those other funds.
Right.
So each fund has when they're not in the general fund, they have a specific purpose, either from an ordinance or a statute that says they have to be used in accordance with in a certain fashion. So within each fund, you close out data. So based on your expenditures going out, your revenues coming in for that particular fund, the net at the end of the fiscal year will roll into fund balance.
No, and
So
thank you. I understand that.
So it's not necessarily taking from the ongoing, it's the fund balance that's in those particular funds. We do monitor those funds closely, and there's criteria around them. Even for the fund balance, there's criteria.
Absolutely, thank you. And I'm just asking, this is my second budget technically, but really my first as far as being involved in the full process. And quite frankly, I thought this was a great process, for me. I'm just saying, I'm not a numbers person, I'm not a budget person, but I've been around budgets quite, over the years based on my other jobs in state government, whatever. So, but I appreciate this process, the number of meetings, the opportunities we had to speak, the opportunity we had to listen, to hear. So I think it was a good process. I think for me, speaking for myself. But I do recall, and I actually went and looked for it, a presentation that was given to us back in March of last year, 2025, which was a fund balance of what, when, and why of fund balances and all the numbers in here. And I think Commissioner Olivas, you may have requested that, which is something that, we need to understand. And I'm thinking about it just in terms of public transparency. This is not private information. This is public information. It's public money that we're doing. So my point is, I realize how the fund balances occur, and I realize that there was more than $13 million in those fund balances. I realize that there's still more than $13 million, or still a substantial amount of money in these fund balances. So, but anyway, and what I'm getting at, and what I should have said first, actually, because I had my notes to say first, but I forgot, is we're not the only ones in this situation. And I pulled out the newspaper a minute ago, and it wasn't to read the newspaper because I was bored. It was because I wanted to pull out the newspaper that was dated April 12th, article 2026, that talked about the city budget of $35 million in cuts. And the question is, it will be enough? And actually, the number of employees impacted were 245 employees, with 67 being reinstated or brought in. I didn't quite understand that, but the math is 245 minus 67, whatever that is. So there was an impact on their employees in the city. And so it's not just us. It's not just, it is a, and I agree with Commissioner Olivas that the revenue has increased 3 to 4%, right? Both gross receipts and property tax revenue per your representations last year. And as it came to be, it was accurate. 3 to 4% is the additional revenue. So I think that I understand Commissioner Olivas' concern about that, and to a certain extent, but I have a very specific reason for that, and that is the other fund of money that was used to balance this budget. I understand the balance process. I've been involved in that. I've seen it before. But I had concern, as I've expressed to some of you in a previous briefing, about the $2.5 million rounded off from the Environmental Services GRT fund that was transferred. The cost was moved out of general fund into that, help me with the term I'm looking for.
With the ESGRT?
It's a non-general fund.
Was transferred into, to pay the part of
Clean
the
team.
budget, right, that oversees the clean team. And I know I'm not using the correct term for that department. But anyway, my concern is that is kind of, just finding money and putting it where you need it to pay the bills, and I get that, I understand that. But I really had some personal legal concern about this, and I expressed a question in writing to County Attorney Martinez. Haven't not had a response to that yet, which I hope to get. But looking at the resolution, and it was really odd because there's two separate resolutions, almost identical but not identical. Ordinance 91-5 and Ordinance 78-43, and I really don't understand why there's two different ordinances. I've actually asked a member of your legal staff about that. I haven't heard back from that either, quite frankly. So, but they essentially say the same thing. This was a specific fund developed as by ordinance for the county commission to fund a very specific use, not just general county, expenditure, a very specific use. And the definition, which I will read, is for the acquisition, construction, operation, and maintenance of solid waste facilities, emphasis on the word facilities, water facilities, emphasis on facilities, wastewater facilities, sewer systems, and related facilities, emphasis on the word facilities again. So this is a issue for me, just in terms of process and budget, but it's also a big concern for me, specifically because it impacts my district and funds that I think could be and should be using for drainage projects in my district. And I think I pointed out at a previous time, a drainage project in my district that began in 2019. In 2019, with $800,000 allocated by the legislature, that is still only now getting going, and I appreciate there's been some action on this in the last few months. I was briefed on that, but it's not fully funded even now after 7 years. And this is a life and death. This is a serious issue and concern for the people of my district, and I think people in general. So the way I see it, and I'm sure can be corrected if I'm wrong, that there was money available in this fund balance all this time that could have been and perhaps should have been used for the very specific purpose articulated in this ordinance of the county commission from 1991. So I have a concern about that, and I'm still looking forward to, from the county attorney, to get a legal interpretation of that sometime between now and the next hearing. But I can read the language myself, and this is of concern to me, legal concern to me, as well as practical concern to me. I don't know this is how, and I think, quite frankly, that's how my district got in a hole that it's in, because of transfers of funds, fund balances for other uses and needs, when it should have been, and had it been, gone directly to the intended purpose all along since 1991. So many of these projects that have been unfunded, that have not been completed, would have been and should have been. I have not gone back and looked to the history of that, but I have asked for that, and I have not received that information either as of today. Of course, I've been in meetings since 12 o'clock noon, so email. They may have come, but I have asked for the budget over the last 3 years for the entity. Elias, help me, for the name of the organization that we're talking about here, the Clean Team.
Madam Chair, Commissioner, it's our solid waste clean team?
Yes, but anyway, there's
one that
another
we're
name I put in my email, so. So my point is that I would like to see those budgets. I would like to see how that money has been spent, and I'll start with the last 3 years. And hopefully it won't be anything that's there that's a red flag, but that is something that is very personal to me. I mean, this is important. This is not just a matter of moving money around or categories. This affects people. And the project in particular had to do with sidewalks around a community center that have not been built. Even though Representative Andres Romero allocated $800,000 to that in 2019, it have not been built. And the children that walk that community center have been walking in dirt and dust and mud for all these years. And I just come to find out that there is a fund. There's a fund here, and now it's being used to balance our general fund balance. So if I feel seem a little bit out of sorts about it, upset, yes, I am. Not mad at anybody because I understand how government works. I've been involved in government bureaucracy. I understand how that works. But I just think that is something that's unacceptable. And I really, Ms. Martinez, I hope you provide me with a legal response.
Yeah.
An analysis of that, not just a response, but an analysis of that, because that is concerning to me. And I look forward to that answer, and also just to suggest that this is something that should be reviewed in regards to budget, because as I said to begin with, there is additional money in these various fund balances. There is, and I know it, and you all know it, there is additional money over and above the 30% that we're mandated to preserve. There is money there to balance it. So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And, Madam Chair, Commissioner Frank Baca, I just wanted to say we received your information, all your requests, and we're pulling that information together, and we plan on getting that to you by the end of the week. A lot of it came in late yesterday, so it takes a little bit of time, and we want to make sure we give you accurate information. And I also want to say that we usually consult bond counsel before we do anything around, because they help build those ordinances before we examine expenses. But we are still working with our county attorney as well as bond counsel to answer your question in terms of that ordinance for the environmental services, GRT.
Environmental services.
And then,
thank you.
yes, and then the services part is, well, you can have all of those projects, but you have to have staffing. So there is a component of that. I'm not saying it's all, I'm just saying a component.
Okay.
It's just like when we issued that debt, and see the debt that's paying off, it's actually going to be paid off in fiscal 27. So it wasn't sitting there before, it was actually making a debt service payment. So it's freeing up recurring dollars, to your point, and we moved that labor for the Dan's group over there, but we'll look at it and see if it's correct, and we'll go from there. But I just want you to know, we're not ignoring you. It just takes time to pull some of that data together. And like you said, we're going back 3 years for the actuals that you've asked for. So we'll be able to give you that.
Thank you, Joy. And please do not see it any personal criticism of you or your staff. It is just what it is, and it's just simply trying to get that information. But I feel very confident that you'll provide that. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
I just wanted you to know that we have some requests from Commissioner Olivas as well, so.
Thank you, Shirley. Go ahead.
And Mr. Vice Chair, we did reach out to bond counsel for this, and he's open to follow-us researching it. He's even communicated with Public Works to get information with regard to what the Public Works project is. And that's honestly things that I was receiving while we were in closed lit today. So we're gathering it. I think we'll have good information by the end of the week. I'll give you a call with an update on that, and then we'll get something drafted for you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Olivas.
And if anybody else wants to jump in, because I've already spoke, but
Go ahead.
I just had a couple other things that I forgot on my list. And Shirley mentioned, DCM Reagan mentioned that she was working on some information that I had requested. Some of that was kind of in what I mentioned, but most of it not. But are we still using a vacancy savings number as revenue? I know in the past we've used, it was a pretty high number, like $20 million or something. Are we still doing that?
Yes.
Okay.
And there's some in this, I think it's like, well, I want to quote the exact amount, but it's there, and we're getting you that answer as well.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that's what we've done for a long time, and it's probably not the best practice, but it is what it is. And then, I had asked for sort of in the past, I think in most of our budgets, we've gotten a full position listing so that we can see, just every position, not just the new positions, which obviously are the new stuff, but the whole listing, so that we can see, and for me, that whole listing with vacancy status is really important to kind of understand, what are we budgeting that we're not using, with the caveat that we're counting some of that as revenue. So that's tricky. And then, Commissioner Baca, I'm more concerned with, I didn't know the context of this that was shared with all of us. I didn't know really what the question was. But I'll just share, with the commission, the only solid waste facility that the county owns and operates is in my district. I'm pretty sure about that, is the East Mountain Transfer Center. And I don't believe that the clean teams are based out of there. And this says operation and maintenance of solid waste facilities. So to me, I can see that the folks that work at that facility, that, do maintenance on that facility, whatever, would fall into that category. And then most of these other things, water facilities, wastewater facilities, sewer systems, we don't necessarily operate, but I know that, to share another example of where this is used in my district, and Commissioner Baca's as well, a huge success is the South Valley Drinking Water Project and the Carnwell Drinking Water Project, where we have used this money to allow people to hook up to clean water and sewer, which, is clearly wastewater and water facilities. It's physical construction. So appreciate you flagging that, and I know that doesn't make your job any easier to say that, but you're absolutely right. And frankly, in Carnwell, we're building out a new phase of the sewer right now, and they're projecting, I think, Dan McGregor and some of the public works staff found maybe a year more of funding to kind of keep the connections going, but very soon we'll be out of money to help people connect to the sewer and wastewater. And I would, this makes me wonder, is this going to further constrain our ability to do that? But I realize the trade-off there is, well, how are you going to pay for the clean teams? Which I also, that was one of the initiatives that we led on this commission, is getting more clean teams. So there's a lot of trade-offs there. And then the last thing that I just wanted to close with was that I did ask for the cost of a 1% raise, which I think is something that's, I think we ought to at least have that information and understand that and think about that in the context of all the other things that we're, paying for, different tech systems and, software and things like that. What are our people worth? And how do we balance that with these other things? They're all important. I get it. Some, in some cases you can't have the people without the software and the hardware, but those are the people doing the work. And particularly, I've asked for two numbers. What does it look like? 1% across the board. And what is 1% below? I think I said $80,000. Yes. And I realize I have to put the little asterisk, subject to negotiations, all that kind of thing. But I really think that we ought to have a communal understanding of what that would look like. And, clearly there's not excess capacity just sitting here that we can just say, let's do it. But I think we need to understand that before we move forward, given what the city and the state is doing and what the environment outside of all that looks like. Gas prices, food prices, instability. I think it's something we really need to consider. And again, that goes back to my biggest concern with investing in people.
And we should have that tomorrow as well, Commissioner. We have people working on it.
And I appreciate you. You called me last night asking, for clarification and stuff, and I know your team's working on it. So I I trust that we'll get it in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, is there any other questions, comments? Thank you so much. Thank you for this I think this is a great presentation. I feel like and I also have very much enjoyed this process. I think, and I really realized that thanks to y'all's leadership, right, we have had an increase in the process, and with our new county manager, I'm very proud of how much we've gotten to see in and how much I've gotten to weigh in and see the details. So I think we're just continue to get better at this, and I'm very grateful for everybody leaning in and making this a more transparent process for us to be able to follow, for the public to be able to follow. I'm really excited about, I do think there's things that we have done in this past year that I would say are extraordinary, that and that are included in this budget, that including some of the ways we're thinking about training or staffing up to a level that we have the capacity to do some of these things that we've been needing to do and maybe have just been either understaffed, or we've really put in a lot of effort into recruitment and getting people in through our system, building the system, and still trying new projects. While still like sort of shifting the way we're doing everything in almost every department. So I'm excited. I'm also really excited. Thank you for the presentation about the zero budgeting, what we can look forward to as we're turning the ship and trying to continue to get more transparency about how we're going to do that and be able to be very close in it. So I want to say that, County Manager, would you like to close us out?
Yes, thank you so much. And I do just want to acknowledge all the staff. I looked over my shoulder and I see everybody who's been working really hard. And I really am very, very proud of the leadership of this organization and every single person who's working, from the clean teams to the folks who were so excited about their jobs and really want to serve the public. Just a couple of things that I want to add. One is that the intent of the approach we're taking is to be as transparent as possible. So your feedback on how we have more clarity is incredibly important, because I think the point that you're raising, that that you've all said in slightly different ways, is that you both this is the most important thing that you do, but also that you have an obligation to be able to explain to your constituents the import and the decisions that you're making. The second thing I wanted to acknowledge is that we really are doing what we think we need to do to dig deep into the organization and make recommendations to you that we think are judicious and protective of the health and vitality of the organization. And I really want to emphasize this, that we do not want to be in a situation where we are laying people off. And the second thing I want to point out is that we have had and been in situations, and I think because the commission did some very bold things, including increasing the salary of all of your employees at 10%, that really had a trajectory for the organization over a number of years. And again, one of the things that we really want to do under the leadership of our new budget office is do the kinds of projections 2, 3, 5 years out, so that we really do understand each action you're taking, and you both understand it from the investment from a capital perspective, but also an operations perspective, and what that means for the future of the organization. We'll get there. And we are digging in the cushions, and I'm saying this to all of you, not necessarily in response to Commissioner Olivas, but I want you all to understand that we understand that our obligation is to get deep enough into the organization, use these new strategies so that you have the opportunity to pick and choose what you want to keep doing and at what level you want to keep doing it. That's really important, and what we're not doing that we should be doing. I just wanted to add 2 other points. One is that as we look at the challenges that we have before us, one of them, as you may know, is that on yesterday, we had a meeting with our HCA and our partnership with UNMH to look at the funding necessary for medical services at MDC. We are going to be bringing to you, as part of the final budget, an additional $1.5 million of one-time money, because we're trying to right-size that partnership, make sure that we're providing the services at the level that we know is going to make sure that people are safe and well who are in our custodial care. So that you will see also. And then just to wrap up, I really wanted to say both to Shirley, Haley, and the budget team that these choices that we're asking you to make, we know are difficult choices. Each choice that we're offering you is really intended to foundationally strengthen the organization long-term so that we're better able to provide the services that people most need and frankly responding to your direction. So these conversations for us, and I really appreciate Commissioner Baca, your point about this not being personal. We understand as your professional staff that we have an obligation to continue to respond to you, to get better and better and get that information to you in a way that's easy to digest and gives you the choices that you need. And again, Shirley and Haley and the team, I really just want to say thank you to you and to all the amazing staff that are still with us tonight. They are giving you their best thinking, and we're doing it in real time, and we'll just keep getting better.
Thank you, County Manager. So I move the introduction of our biennial budget for introduction. Can I have a second? Biennium. Have a second. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Commissioner Benson.
Oh, Commissioner Benson did text me since the last vote that he was going to be jumping on.
Commissioner Olivas.
No.
Commissioner Barbara Baca.
Yes.
Vice Chair Frank Baca.
Yes.
Madam Chair Barboa.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have pass 3-1 present. And great, we will announcement of the next commission meeting. Correct. Tuesday, April 28th, 2026 will be the next administrative meeting at 5 p.m. here at Ken Sanchez Commission. There's no other business. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.